rewrite the arrangement with the EU, citing a febrile political climate in Northern Ireland, trade barriers across the Irish Sea and disruption to businesses. The EU says it is willing to seek creative solutions within the framework of the protocol, but won't agree to a full renegotiation.
In fresh evidence of America's political polarization, Republicans in the House of Representatives now say they will conduct their own investigation into the January 6th insurrection by Donald Trump's conspiracy theory-believing supporters. Democrat Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, rejected the Republican Party's nominees to join a bipartisan probe. The Republicans' leader, Congressman Kevin McCarthy.
Pelosi has created a sham process. Unless Speaker Pelosi reverses course and seats all 5 Republicans, we will not participate.
But the Democrats say it would be ludicrous to include Republican members who tried to overturn the outcome of last November's election. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, has been defending his conduct in the dying weeks of the Trump administration. He made a rare appearance in the briefing room at the Pentagon.
The United States military is an apolitical institution. We were then, we are now. And our oath is to the Constitution, not to any individual at all. The military did not and will not and should not ever get involved in domestic politics. We don't arbitrate elections.
General Milley's actions are questioned in a series of new books about the Trump presidency. The mayor of Liverpool says it is incomprehensible that UNESCO is stripping the city's famed waterfront of its World Heritage status. UNESCO says recent developments, including plans for Everton's new football stadium, have resulted in a serious deterioration of the site. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, Pegasus, the software that can turn your phone into a piece of technology that spies on you without you ever knowing it. A major international investigation by 16 news organizations has alleged that the software, manufactured by Israeli company NSO, has been used by several international governments to gather information about at least 50,000 separate targets globally. They include, we learnt yesterday, the French President Emmanuel Macron. John Scott Railton of Citizen Lab is one of the researchers who exposed the dark underbelly of Pegasus.
One of the things that for years we've known about this kind of spyware company is that they sell to autocrats and dictators. Autocrats and dictators do autocratic and dictatorial things with these technologies. What we're learning today, and increasingly now, is that officials of Western governments, including the French President Emmanuel Macron, as well as governments around the world, are also targeted. That includes a large list of sitting prime ministers, 3 presidents and a king, all targeted with this stuff. If a president of France can be targeted with this, what chance do you have?
NSO calls the allegations about its software false. The company says it's considering a defamation lawsuit against the media organizations behind the probe. It claims to sell its technology only to vetted law enforcement and intelligence agencies. The main news again. President Xi Jinping says there has been a significant loss of life following unprecedented floods in central China. The European Union is rebuffing British plans to renegotiate post-Brexit trade arrangements for Northern Ireland. And the mayor of Liverpool says it is incomprehensible that UNESCO is stripping the city's famed waterfront of its World Heritage status. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
Fossilized evidence reveals the Spazosaurus was the largest doofus ever to roam the Earth, and a new tandem mobility scooter is released. This is the Onion Week in Review, damn it, and we're going to need you to demonstrate a little decorum. Got it? This week, economists confirm that the booming tear gas industry continues to lead the world's economic recovery. Financial experts confirmed that the growing demand for tear gas in countries like Turkey, Brazil, and Greece has increased over 20% annually over the past few years, and is anticipated to continue playing a major role in the world economy.
The market for tear gas just keeps sustaining itself and growing. We can only hope that more people demand tear gas in the coming months, and the recovery will be here sooner than we thought.
In other news, a community is devastated by the sight of an old man struggling up some steps. A stack of unused CDRs turns 5 years old, and this zoo is really promoting the hell out of their new fruit bat. Your diligence and patience have been noted. Prove yourself further at theonion.com.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live. It is Free Talk Live. You're welcome to join the discussions we're going to be having tonight. That number is 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Angie, and Bonnie.
And among the conversations that we're going to be having tonight, the fear-mongering that I saw today on the Drudge Report was just insane. And none of the articles in and of themselves are really worth talking about. It's about the Lambda COVID variant, the Gamma COVID variant, and a monkeypox outbreak. The fear-mongering regarding disease has gotten out of control because the monkeypox in particular is one person. The outbreak is one entire person who had monkeypox.
We're in a state of panic. Everyone, it's going to be a pandemic.
That's what they're suggesting. And of course, the Biden administration actually released one of the, I think there's 130 or so people still in Guantanamo Bay. I don't remember the exact number, but the Biden administration released one of them. So small progress there.
Yay.
And a Fearless Boxing Club, a gym, has decided that they are not going to allow customers who have been vaccinated against COVID.
I think that is a great idea.
It's an interesting twist that I didn't see coming, certainly.
Well, they say that once you get the vaccine, you shed.
Right.
And if you're boxing,
at least briefly, right.
Yeah, but if you're boxing, you're going to be intimate with people. And why are you going to require people to have it if you don't believe in it?
Yeah, and it's also pretty fearless because they're from Canada, which is, I would think, even more, vaccine crazy.
So despite its bold name, there is one thing the founders of Toronto's Fearless Boxing Club seem to be scared of: vaccinated people. According to an Instagram post, the gym's vaccine policy states that people who've received the experimental COVID vaccine will no longer be accepted as members.
Now, I wonder when they did that, how many members they actually lost.
Probably not many. And part of that, we'll get into the reasons why. But they're not taking at least new customers who have the vaccine. I imagine people who do have the vaccine no longer want to be there, though.
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either, but I wouldn't have gotten the vaccine. So.
Right, me either, so.
The policy states the gym's current members include doctors, nurses, teachers, parents, and youth who, quote, feel safer waiting until more research is done on the side effects being discovered right now. I don't know what they're talking about because I don't pay much attention to any of the COVID-19. I say that, but like COVID-19 is all we've talked about over the last 18 months, but I don't know what new side effects they're talking about.
I don't know, but I heard Conan say yesterday that 11,000 people have died from the vaccine, and I wanted to know where he got that number, but I didn't ask.
I don't know where he got it. All of the COVID-19 vaccines being used in Canada were approved by Health Canada and subject to large clinical trials that showed their safety and efficacy. According to the City of Toronto, the vaccines, quote, met the same safety and quality standards required for all vaccines. No steps were skipped in the approval process. And as I understand it, that's true in the United States as well, except the United States just allowed them to jump to the front of the queue.
Don't they usually test vaccines? Don't they give them to, I don't know, rats or chickens or something to make sure that they're not going to mutate them?
Did they not do that?
I don't think so. No, we were the guinea pigs, right?
I don't know. I just assumed they had tested it on some sort of animal before that.
Well,
I'm against animal testing anyway. If humans want to have the benefit of a cure or treatment, then it should be tested on humans and not helpless animals who aren't going to benefit from it.
I agree too. But I don't even think that what they said is true, that they put it through the same tests as every other vaccine, because like Nikki is always saying that some medicines go through like 10-year trials before they're ever released. Maybe it's not vaccines.
Maybe the trials aren't required. Maybe it's just something that the vaccine manufacturer wants to, because the normal vaccines, can't you sue if something happens? Like you can file a lawsuit and say, hey, I got sick or disabled from this vaccine.
I do not know.
But the COVID vaccine, there's no responsibility there.
According to Blog2, whoever that is, Fearless Studios was founded by professional boxer Muhammad Abedin and professional dancer Crystal Glazier. Glazier Roscoe, excuse me. Its Instagram bio states that the business was built in the lockdown, opened in the lockdown, and we're not going anywhere. That's the part that I find amazing, that they created this business during the lockdown and were open during the lockdown. Gyms were among the places most heavily targeted.
And there were a lot of gyms that closed down.
There were, and some of them haven't come back.
Nope.
Its Instagram page, which has around 2,500 followers, also includes a section called COVID Bull, seemingly complaining about masks and lockdowns. I don't know, because they didn't link to any of it.
Yeah, just complaining. We don't want to put anything that could be, make them look right. They were just complaining.
And they didn't give any examples. Recent Instagram stories of, quote, Camp Freedom. Who is Camp Freedom? What are these people even talking about?
Why do they live in Toronto?
I don't know. That's a good question. But the article does talk about that. It shows clips of mostly unmasked children inside boxing and playing. I'm surprised this was mostly. I would expect it to be all of them. I couldn't imagine doing something like boxing while wearing a mask. That's insane. Reached by Vice World News Wednesday morning, Abedin said he couldn't do an interview because he was really busy right now. It's unclear what Fearless' business plan is, given that more than 65% of adults in Toronto are fully vaccinated. Well, I don't know anything about about Canada, really, because I'm an American and we're pretty ignorant of most countries, but 35% of adults is still a lot of adults.
I think so. And how many children?
Right. And I imagine there are plenty of people willing to go to the gym who aren't vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
The gym's Google reviews average 1.7 stars, with many reviewers complaining about the anti-vax policy. A few months ago, so people who aren't even customers are leaving them bad reviews. I mean, they can't be customers, right, if they have their vaccines. A few months ago, Fearless posted on Instagram that doing what's right isn't always easy, alongside a photo of headlines denouncing Muhammad Ali for draft evasion during the Vietnam War. The photo stated that the gym had received hundreds of messages of support. So these aren't libertarians, certainly.
Probably not.
Well, I mean, they're criticizing Muhammad Ali for draft evasion. So
I thought they were saying he did what was right and it wasn't easy because, well, I don't know. Maybe I heard it wrong.
Maybe you're correct. They put doing what's right isn't always easy alongside a photo of headlines. You're correct.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I misunderstood. So they may have some libertarian leanings. They're anti-war.
At least anti the draft.
Yeah. Fair point. The photo stated that the gym had received hundreds of messages of support. The news about Fearless comes as local businesses grapple with whether or not to require staff and patrons to be vaccinated. In the United States, businesses are requiring employees to be vaccinated, and apparently they can fire you if you're not vaccinated. And we learned last night that they can, in fact, require the same thing of customers. They can't actually say, hey, prove that you're vaccinated or take off or put a mask on. They can say, hey, masks are required unless you prove that you're vaccinated.
And there are signs around businesses here that say that.
That you have to prove you're vaccinated?
Not that prove, but you have to have a mask on if you're not vaccinated.
I've seen those too. I walk right by them.
I do too.
Me too.
Because my health is not their business.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I'm not going to let it make it their business. So Good Life Gyms recently sparked controversy when the chain tweeted it would not... Why do they keep introducing new names that they haven't explained? Who is Good Life Gyms? They didn't say anything about them at any point prior to this.
Is this Fox News?
No, this is Drudge Report.
Oh.
But they have a terrible writing staff, clearly. Other businesses have taken a different tack, including Toronto restaurant Chanticleer, which will require customers sitting at the bar to show proof of vaccination. So presumably you could go into this bar and get a seat at the table, but if you want to come to the bar where the cool kids sit, you have to prove that you're vaccinated.
That's because you can't social distance at the bar.
But that's the point of the bar.
I know.
The strip club Fillmore's told the Toronto Sun its staff are all fully vaccinated and customers will be required to have at least one dose. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
One dose, isn't that useless?
Yeah, that's what I always think.
An initiative called Safe to Do, which was listing Ontario establishments with vaccinated staff, shut down Tuesday. So Ontario establishments had a website called Safe to Do, where they were listing restaurants that had vaccinated staff. Tweeting that the businesses in the database were being subjected to negative reviews and hateful messages. This was truly unexpected. I started this website less than a week ago, and it was supposed to be apolitical, but it immediately became political because this entire thing immediately became political. What are your thoughts? Should businesses actually require customers to not be vaccinated if they want to shop there? I kind of like the idea. But what do you think? 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in. 603-283-6160.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it. And once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world. So I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and you're welcome to join us. 603-283-6160 is the number if you want to do that. That's 603-283-6160. This vaccine stuff is so wild to me, man. I never thought I would live in a society that was telling people they had to reveal their medical history to strangers if they wanted to take part in society. But I guess that's just sort of because childhood vaccines are just so common that, your typical nosy Nancy isn't willing to ask strangers if they received what do they immunize kids against?
There
Measles.
are tons of vaccines.
I know, but I don't know what any of them are for.
Chickenpox.
Is there a chickenpox vaccine?
There is a chickenpox vaccine.
Why? It's such an innocuous disease.
Yeah, I didn't get vaccinated at all as a kid, and
I didn't either. I got chickenpox
Yeah,
twice.
and I got chickenpox. Really, twice?
Twice.
I
thought you could only get it once.
Twice, if I recall correctly. I think you can get it more than once, but it's extremely rare.
Yeah, was it as bad the second time as the first time?
I was in third grade then. I have no idea.
Yeah, I was 1 year old, and I still remember taking an oatmeal bath somehow. But I was 1 year old.
That was probably like your first memory that you remember?
I don't know. I have a few really early memories.
Well, let's go to the phones. We got Dave calling from New Hampshire. Dave, you're on Free Talk Live. Oh, I've got you muted. Sorry. Hold on, Dave.
Or maybe all ladies.
Go ahead.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have some updates with regard to the fallout from the Capitol Hill protests.
Now, I don't know what these protests are. When did this occur?
I'm talking about the Capitol Hill protests of January 6th and the follow-up arrests.
Gotcha. Okay. When you said the New Hampshire Capitol arrest, I thought you meant, okay. I'm with you now. The January 6th, quote, insurrection, where a number of unhappy people conducted a no-knock raid on the government, and the government didn't appreciate it.
Correct. And this is a June 16th article in the Union Leader in New Hampshire. And I think I always like to say, by their grievances shall ye know them. And so if you can hear what people are complaining about, you can tell who the bad guy is. And here's what the federal government is complaining about. The headline is, quote, NH man pleads guilty to, quote, unlawful picketing, unquote.
Unlawful picketing?
Yes, and that was something he apparently did on January 6th at the Capitol building.
It's also what Savage did at the Sununu's house this year or last year, whatever.
Footloose is how I know him.
Yeah. So in this case, the guy's name is Thomas Gallagher. The federal government admits he did not commit any violent acts, but he's facing up to 6 months in prison after pleading guilty.
In prison?
Yes. For being inside the building.
Why? So he accepted a plea deal, presumably, right?
Correct.
And the plea deal he got gave him 6 months in prison?
It's a maximum sentence of 6 months in prison based on his plea.
Okay. So for being in the building at a time when, I've never been to the Capitol building. Is it or is it not open to the public in general?
Yeah, I've been in and out of it. It was no big deal. I don't even remember going through security. That was back in the 80s. I was at the Iran-Contra hearings.
Yeah, I assumed it was open to the general public. So this guy went in, with some people who were unhappy, and presumably he was one of these unhappy people, and ultimately is getting charged with unlawful picketing because they don't have anything else they can charge him with.
So just because he was holding a sign, because isn't that what picketing means?
Well, you don't even have to hold a sign. As that happened, that's when Footloose got arrested here in New Hampshire when he was trying to, quote, protest at Sununu's house. He was holding a candle. So it doesn't even have to be a sign.
I'm not trying to claim that everyone at this protest behaved appropriately. That is not the claim I'm making. But he's supposed to be charged with what he's done, right? Not with what someone else has done or some new fear that's spreading through the country. That's not what you get charged with. You get charged with what you do. And being in the building, and apparently they've said, the federals apparently also admitted that he tried to stop other people from doing any vandalism. There's video of him trying to stop someone from throwing a chair. So he was in there. I mean, for all we know, he was there for the purpose of trying to stop everybody from hurting anyone.
Well, the federal government will use whatever they want to make your charges worse. Like, for example, in Nobody's last hearing, they used the January 6th thing to make their case that he should be in jail still. I can't remember exactly what they said, but they said they compared a tweet that he made to some things that were said on January 6th. It was like they were just like, I'm going to bring up January 6th, and that makes nobody bad man.
So there's another line in the article that is telling here, quote, police ordered, it's a quote, I'm sorry, I keep looking for the wrong one. permission, there was something about, quote, federal prosecutors said Gallagher knew he did not have permission to enter the Capitol that day, unquote. So you have to have, again, that's what you're giving 6 months in jail for something like that? You went into a government building and you knew you weren't supposed to? Well, who said you're not supposed to go into a government building? Aren't they our buildings?
And don't you have the right to petition your government?
No, apparently not.
Right. But you should have the right. And I mean, essentially picketing is doing nothing but petitioning the government. If the guy was even picketing, which, I mean, they've got their own little weird legal definition that, somehow includes just standing in a place. Sure. But even if he was picketing with a sign, that's constitutionally protected.
Right.
They didn't have permission to come into my house on March 16th.
Why didn't they hit him with, trespass or something like that? If you have to have permission to be somewhere, that's trespassing.
No, you're not trespassing unless they ask you to leave and you don't after. So I don't know if he did that.
It says Thomas Gallagher entered a guilty plea to a charge of, quote, parading, demonstrating, or picketing in a Capitol building, unquote.
Is that illegal? Is it illegal to demonstrate?
I didn't know it was. Yeah, really. Even I didn't know that.
I didn't know parading was. We should have a parade in the Capitol.
Well, you can't. It's illegal.
Well, it's like the old German expression. All revolutions are verboten because revolution has been forbidden.
Yeah, that's bizarre. You can't petition, your elected officials in their place of work. Which is, where you would generally expect to be able to petition them. Absolutely insane. Dave, thank you so much for the updates. Now, did you guys ever pick out a date when you're going down to the Federal Reserve building?
Yes, Mr. Bitcoin has, I don't know what the Federal Reserve, but Mr. Bitcoin has scheduled the first demonstration that is on Monday at 10 a.m. at the New Hampshire Federal Building. And later on, possibly Tuesday or later Monday, he will probably go to the Federal Reserve Building in Boston, but that has not been scheduled yet.
Is Bitcoin Gandhi going?
Yes, I'm planning to. If you go to bitcoingandhi.net, I have put updates there.
10 a.m. though, man, you guys do not stay up late, do you?
Well, I do, and that's going to be hard for me. But I think that he did it at that time to give him time to go to other places that day.
Gotcha. So that's Monday at 10 a.m. I would love to say I would be there, but there's no way I'm going to be in Concord by 10 a.m. But you can find out more about it at bitcoingandhi.net. Of course, that's Bitcoin, GANDHI.net. When we get back, we're going to talk about how to have a healthy sex life. 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Xi Jinping says there has been a significant loss of life following unprecedented floods in Henan province in central China. At least 25 people are dead and more than 100,000 displaced after what weather forecasters say is the highest level of rainfall in more than 1,000 years. FSN's Beijing bureau chief is Patrick Fock.
We are told that more than 60% of the city's annual rainfall all came down in a single day. The images that we've seen include pictures of roads completely submerged and cars getting washed away, as well as water bursting into subway stations. And of course, these harrowing images of people trapped in trains almost neck deep in water.
The European Union is rebuffing British desires to renegotiate post-Brexit trade arrangements for Northern Ireland. The government in London says the current protocol is unsustainable. From FSN's Brussels bureau, Lucy Hoff reports.
The British government is now looking to substantially rewrite the arrangement with the EU, citing a febrile political climate in Northern Ireland, trade barriers across the Irish Sea, and disruption to businesses. The EU says it is willing to seek creative solutions within the framework of the protocol, but won't agree to a full renegotiation.
In fresh evidence of America's political polarization, Republicans in the House of Representatives now say they will conduct their own investigation into the January 6th insurrection by Donald Trump's conspiracy theory-believing supporters. Democrat Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, rejected the Republican Party's nominees to join a bipartisan probe. The Republicans' leader, Congressman Kevin McCarthy.
Pelosi has created a sham process. Unless Speaker Pelosi reverses course and seats all 5 Republicans, we will not participate.
But the Democrats say it would be ludicrous to include Republican members who tried to overturn the outcome of last November's election. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, has been defending his conduct in the dying weeks of the Trump administration. He made a rare appearance in the briefing room at the Pentagon.
The United States military is an apolitical institution. We were then, we are now. And our oath is to the Constitution, not to any individual at all. The military did not and will not and should not ever get involved in domestic politics. We don't arbitrate elections.
General Milley's actions are questioned in a series of new books about the Trump presidency. The mayor of Liverpool says it is incomprehensible that UNESCO is stripping the city's famed waterfront of its World Heritage status. UNESCO says recent developments, including plans for Everton's new football stadium, have resulted in a serious deterioration of the site. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160 if you want to join the conversation. That's 603-283-6160. And as promised, we're going to talk about how to have a healthy sex life, or what the key to a healthy sex life is, other than the obvious answer being sex.
Yes, that always makes
I'm sorry. Hold on.
Like, I don't hear me.
Yeah, I didn't hear you either.
That always makes for a good sex life.
Yes, you're not having a good sex life if you're not having sex.
And it doesn't mean by yourself. Like a partner is important.
A partner helps, yes.
Yes.
I don't think it qualifies as sex if there's not a partner.
Probably not, but it's still, it can be enjoyable, but it's not as enjoyable as with a partner.
So let's get into this article because they think the solution is mindfulness.
Yeah, I think being present is kind of what they're saying should happen during sex. It talks about, the article says, to prevent performance anxiety from interfering with a healthy sex life, mindfulness is the answer.
To prevent performance anxiety.
Yeah, it goes and talks about what people are usually thinking when they're having sex. And it's not, oh, this is really nice. This feels really good. It's, am I doing okay? Am I performing okay? Am I doing this right? Oh,
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and so people are anxious, so they're not really in the moment.
Yeah. Oh my God, I was about to say when I was a kid, but when I was younger and I first started having sex, I kind of just figured this out naturally. Like I would always be really nervous and just be like, I don't know. I realized I had to enjoy it by not thinking about what I'm doing.
Exactly, and that's what it says. If you're mindful, you're present.
Yeah.
So you're thinking, you're on whatever is happening at the moment.
Well, that's true of all things, really.
Right, yeah.
If you're having a rock concert and you're worrying about whether or not you're doing okay, then you're not fully enjoying yourself because you're busy worrying.
Exactly. Or you're worried about what you have on, or worried about if people are looking at you, or if you're looking a fool dancing around. And then there's anxiety there as well.
That's so true with like dancing. Yeah, you just have to not think about it and just
let it
feel
go.
Yeah.
See, I can't do that in regard to dancing, but I'm not much of a dancer in the first place.
Even if you have a couple of drinks, then could you do it?
I don't know. I've never, not usually out in a setting where there's dancing when I'm drinking. So
Well,
I
that's
don't
a
know.
challenge. So
The answer is probably still probably not. But it's just that's not one of the things that I do to express joy.
Yeah.
So
I used to think the same thing, and then I started going out to bars that actually played music I like, aka gay bars, and I realized I actually really love dancing. I used to think like, oh, that's just not something I like to do.
I love to dance.
I
It's
totally
great
changed my mind.
cardio. The exercise is great. If you do it correctly the next day, you're sore.
interesting. So what else does this article have to say?
I clicked off of it. Hold on. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
It goes on and talks about what you can do is, feel the person, listen to their breath, and that will bring you into the moment.
Interesting.
That sounds a little creepy, but whatever helps, I guess. I don't generally, I want to sit and listen to the sound of you breathing. I mean, they could have phrased that in a way that was a little bit less creepy.
Right. Well, I don't think they phrased it exactly like that, but I was still waiting for the article. You're welcome. It says recognize the problem. People with anxiety around sex tend to use avoidance as a coping mechanism. You won't get any better if you don't do it.
So that people avoid sex because of performance anxiety?
Exactly. Because they're worried.
That's stupid. That's how you get over performance anxiety. No, every musician who ever got on a stage was nervous the first time they did it.
Or the first 15 times.
Or more likely the first 100.
Right? And as you're bigger, the crowds are going to get bigger. So then you're going to have anxiety about that as well.
Excellent point.
Might happen when you're having sex too. The crowds might get bigger.
So something that you can do is talk to your partner about it so that they know how you feel.
That's always good advice.
Yes.
I mean, communication is key to any healthy and successful relationship. Too many people don't communicate in their relationships, and that's why they fail.
It's hard sometimes to communicate in relationships.
It is because, people become emotional, they become angry and stuff like that, and then they don't want to talk, or they're talking, but they're not communicating.
Or they're nasty.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to be kind and patient, and especially if you're upset.
Yeah, but that's when it's most important, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. Mindfulness is the perfect counter to sexual anxiety since it thwarts worry about impending ills by inviting you to become fully present in the here and now. Rather than thinking there's a right or wrong way to feel or think at any given moment, you practice acceptance in this state of simply being, ultimately lowering stress levels. Instead of being preoccupied with the past or future, your awareness is dedicated to simply being right there.
That's awesome. And that's good advice all around.
Right.
People should do more to live in the moment rather than the future or the past or whether or not they're being judged or worrying or, just anxiety in general. But, we live in a society where everyone claims to have anxiety or depression or something like that.
And there's a medication for all of it.
There is. I was looking into dog training because I finally got permission to, Google dog stuff now that I have a dog. And one of the things I was looking into about golden retrievers, I don't remember exactly what I had clicked on. It was some training thing, but at the end it was like, your dog may have anxiety or depression.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, are you kidding me? They're now diagnosing dogs with depression. Look.
They have medications for that for dogs as well.
I am not a fan of killing animals, but if you have a dog who suffers from depression, get your vet to just put her down.
Oh my goodness. Why?
Because a dog is not... I would say the same thing of a human being that's dealing with depression.
What if it's a dog that
just
suffers
kill yourself.
because of like a loss of owner or something of that nature? Yeah. And so it was like an onset of depression of something that like an event.
Well, that's not depression. That's sadness.
Right, but they might be a depressed pup after that.
Sure. Okay, but the sense in which they used it wasn't because of a loss of an owner or something like that. They meant...
It's because the owner was crazy and they're depressed that they have to live with that owner.
Yeah, they meant, is it medically diagnosed? Does your dog have a serotonin imbalance?
Oh my goodness. I feel like
have some
that doesn't
Prozac
exist.
for dogs.
There's a test.
And anxiety, separation anxiety. Luckily, my puppy doesn't have to deal with that, but...
We had to deal with that with a German Shepherd we had when we first moved here, and I took a trip to North Carolina, and Michael came to Keene, and he stayed overnight, and he came back, and the dog had chewed through the water softener system in the basement.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, he was like, this dog has to go.
I do know a girl who has a dog who suffered from separation anxiety, and when they would go to work, the dog would just bash its head on its crate, ultimately giving itself brain damage.
Oh,
and
no.
ultimately becoming crippled and having to be put down. So separation anxiety can certainly be a real thing with dogs, but I mean, they're social creatures.
Yeah, well, we just found someone who was there all the time. You know, that.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so the dog was good.
So, but dogs suffering from depression, anxiety, I don't see it, but I see it a lot in humans. You know, clicking on your average LGBTQ person's Twitter profile is just a litany of mental illnesses in their bio. Why do people advertise this? That's something I don't get. I have PTSD, anxiety, and bipolar disorder, and ADHD. Why are you going around
Do you think that they're looking for
that?
sympathy, or they want everyone to be prepared when they meet them?
I think it's sympathy and attention because, I mean, I definitely don't think that you should be ashamed of those things, but they're also just, it's actually not part of you. It's just like a state of mind you're in sometimes to have like PTSD or whatever, you know, like it's not like you should live like that every day. It's not part of your personality, and it's also not, you know, you don't get a cookie for it, you know?
Well, they think they should get a cookie for it, I think. But it's so weird to me. It's like any other disease or illness you have. You don't advertise to people that you have...
Crohn's.
Yeah, thank you. But you do advertise to people for whatever reason on the internet that you have PTSD or bipolar disorder or ADHD or whatever. It's just because they want sympathy and attention as far as I can tell.
I think the real disease there is social media because nobody has ever done something like that, I feel like, until social media existed. It's like a Tumblr age thing.
But would it have happened anyway without social media? I tend to think that it would have.
Maybe it happened, but there wasn't so many diagnoses.
In one of the Facebook groups I'm in, I actually saw it. I don't remember the name of the group. Mansplain Harder Daddy is actually the name of the group. But the girl started out her post saying, you know, I have self-diagnosed bipolar disorder. So that's not a thing. You don't have self-diagnosed anything. You don't have anything diagnosed. You want to feel special. What are your thoughts? Maybe we're wrong here. Maybe mental illness is abounding. 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people like passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
If you're David, a few well-chosen words can help level the playing field with Goliath. I'm Holland Cook from survivalspeech.com. Recently, I saw a Yellow Pages ad for an appliance repair company, and the headline read, "Why wait for Sears?" If you're going to the Yellow Pages, the Dead Sea Scrolls of advertising, you're ready to buy right now. So this is an attention-grabbing message. And how about the plumber whose radio ad says, Call by noon Thursday, and we'll be there Saturday at no extra cost. Smart guy. Most plumbing firms give their crew the weekend off. This one gives them Sunday and Monday off. In the words of a respected advertising executive, cut to the chase, make it quick, and tell me exactly what you can do for me, especially if you're looking for work. For more tips on critical communication skills for the way things are now, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. That's the number if you want to join the conversation. That's 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Angie,
and Bonnie.
And I want to tell you about Bitcoin.com. It's the best place to learn about Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. Just click Getting Started at the top of the page. It just takes you a couple of minutes, and you can learn the basics of this world-changing technology. And it's important, too, because it is world-changing technology. The world is moving very quickly to catch the boat before it sets sail. Yeah, I don't know why that got so confused in my head. But if you do already know about cryptocurrency, check out news.bitcoin.com to stay up to date on all the news and headlines that's relevant to you. That's news.bitcoin.com, all on a sleek and easy to use modern website. So Dave Ridley called earlier, and he talked about an update of a New Hampshire resident who was at the insurrection that took place on January the 6th. I've got something about that. I did not even know that they had created a commission to investigate the January 6th insurrection, as they're calling it. But evidently they did. Congressman Benny Thompson, the chairman of the new House Select Committee to scrutinize the Capitol attack, says that he will investigate Donald Trump as part of his inquiry into the events of January the 6th, a day he sees as the greatest test to the United States since the Civil War. So presumably the January 6th riot was worse than both world wars, the Vietnam War.
Because so many people died.
Yes. Evidently, there were like 5 people who died. So,
and they were protesters and like cops, right?
In an interview with The Guardian, Thompson said that he is also prepared to depose members of Congress and Senator Trump and senior Trump administration officials who might have participated in the insurrection that left 5 dead and nearly 140 injured.
What does dispose mean?
Depose?
Yeah.
I think it means to take them out of office, doesn't it? If you like depose the king, you're removing the king from power. Right? I don't know, and I can't just Google it, but I'm pretty sure that's what it means. Absolutely, Thompson said of his intent to pursue a wide-ranging inquiry against the former president and some of his most prominent allies. Nothing is off limits. The aggressive move to place Trump in the crosshairs of the Select Committee underscores Thompson's determination to uncover the root causes of January the 6th, even after Senate Republicans, fearing political damage, blocked the creation of a 9/11-style commission. But they evidently weren't able to block the creation of this commission. I guess they lost power. Who knows? I don't pay much attention to federal politics. The move comes at the same time as many Republicans have been seeking to downplay the attack on the Capitol. Well, because it wasn't an attack on the Capitol. It was some angry rednecks rampaging through a building. Some of them stole some stuff, and that was wrong. Some of them damaged some stuff, and that was wrong. But no politician got hurt. If this was an insurrection, then a politician or two would have gotten hurt.
Did any government officials get injured?
Only a cop, I think. But
it wasn't the cop off duty. I could be wrong, but I thought it was like an off-duty cop that just like volunteered to help.
Off the top of my head, I have no idea.
I could be wrong.
There is no doubt in Thompson's mind of the seriousness of the event. Well, I'm sure the politicians are taking it very seriously because they were the ones that
absolutely.
That the protesters were unhappy with.
Yeah.
But they're taking it in the wrong way. They're just thinking, oh, Republicans bad instead of, well, I don't know if they're really thinking this. It could all be like, psyops, but.
Well, they're definitely thinking we're scared, and instead of addressing the issues, we need to crack down on people and acquire more power so that this doesn't happen again.
Yep, they're not listening to any of the people's demands. Not that I really understand what their demands were because they're a bunch of, Proud Boys that don't know what they're talking about.
The issues of January 6th are one of the most salient challenges we have as a nation to make sure that this democracy does not fall prey to people who don't really identify with democracy. Well, is this a democracy? I was under the impression that it was not. But they don't seem to know the difference. And, I mean, most people don't know the difference anyway, but it's a constitutional republic for anyone who's keeping score. The central thrust of the investigation will focus on the facts and circumstances surrounding the Capitol attack. And the first hearing, scheduled for 27th of July, will feature current and former U.S. police and D.C. Metro police officers. But in pursuing a broad mandate to also examine the root causes of the insurrection, which I can't imagine they're actually going to deal with. The root causes were just people are unhappy with the government and what the government is doing.
And I think I heard a lot about that they believed that that Trump was supposed to have won the presidency or whatever.
Well, there are still people who believe that Trump is going to take office like next week or something.
Yeah, like August 15th or something.
Is that what the date was?
I think it's like August 15th.
They keep moving it though. I remember when it was like March 5th.
Yeah, it's amazing that anyone continues to buy into this stuff because it's just like the doomsday pastors who are always like, oh, this is the world is going to end on this date.
But not today.
Turns out I miscalculated.
It was
it's
the wrong
actually
year.
ending. Thompson indicated that Trump and White House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy are among the top witnesses for his investigation, in large part because McCarthy was on the phone with the former president as the riot unfolded. That's confusing to me. So because he was on the phone, McCarthy called Trump in a panic as rioters breached the Capitol and begged him to call off his supporters, only for Trump to chastise the top Republican in the House. Who is McCarthy? Because I've never heard of him.
I was wondering that too. I was like, I missed that.
He's the House Minority Leader. And, well, like I said, I don't pay much attention to the federal government. So I don't know who the current head of any of these places are.
I want to know what he said to chastise the guy, though. It was probably funny.
Yeah, Trump evidently chastised him for not doing more to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. Well, that's not a good look for Trump.
Oh,
right?
I thought he was chastising him about being scared of the people or whatever.
No, it sounds to me that the guy called Trump like, oh my God, rioters breached the Capitol. And Trump said, well, you should have done more to overturn the results of the election.
Oh my God.
Except Trump wouldn't have, been that brazen. He would have said something like, well, you should have done your duty to look into the fairness of the election or whatever. There will not be a reluctance on the part of the committee to pursue it. The committee will want to know if there is a record of what was said. Well, of course there is. The NSA has it. Just ask them. The exchange between, or use the, I've already forgotten the name of it. The Paradox software? That's not it. It's what we just talked about it like Monday.
I don't know.
Pegasus software. But Thompson went further and said that he expects anyone, whether a sitting member of Congress or a former White House official, who may have spoken to Trump on January 6th to become the subject of the Select Committee's investigation. So if you spoke to Donald Trump on January the 6th, you're a subject of the Select Committee's investigation. So it doesn't sound to me like they're interested in pursuing the root cause of this. They're interested in using it as a way to finally get Donald Trump for something, which is shocking to me because that's part of the game they've always played. That's why we knew that Hillary was never going to actually go to jail, because they don't want to upset it for everyone else. You start arresting one president for things they did while in office, and you're going to find out that you ultimately have to arrest all of them. And that's going to be true of every single elected official. You've got all of them doing things that are shady and criminal. So they've always just sort of let it slide. They didn't.
And do you think that squeaky clean Barack Obama did something that was criminal? What do you think he did?
I don't know what he did, but I'm certain he did something that was criminal.
Because he was supposed to be like the perfect president, like the good family guy, the one that took care of his wife, and like that was the picture they painted.
If he's anything like the average American, he's committing 5 felonies a day right now. So
yes,
they could get him for some of that.
He was president, so maybe he's above average.
Against that backdrop, Thompson said that he expects to demand testimony from senior Trump administration officials. So yeah, they're just going after the Trump administration. We're pursuing it in court. He expects the Select Committee and senior House investigators to meet with the Attorney General and expressed optimism for conducting his investigation in close coordination with the Justice Department. But I don't think the investigation is even starting from a good place, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere that is any better, because it's starting from, this was an insurrection. This is the most damaging thing, to the most threatening thing to the United States since the Civil War. So if you start with that premise, you're not going to be led to the truth, because the premise that you're starting with is false. We don't want to get in the way of indictments, but I think there could be some sharing of information.
Wait, what about 9/11?
What about it?
They're saying this is the most threatening thing to the United States since the Civil War.
Oh, also a good point. Yeah.
9/11.
Yeah, 9/11 would also be
a little bit worse.
Greater threat to United States democracy. But I mean, they don't care. This was the greatest threat to American politicians since the Civil War. That part is at least true. And it's the politicians that they care about. They don't care about democracy or a threat to the republic or a threat to the people. But suddenly there's a real and possible threat against politicians. I mean, there wasn't, but they didn't know that. And they don't want there to ever be one. So they're going to use this January 6th, quote, insurrection as a way of warding that off. What do you think about all of this? Should this commission proceed? It sounds to me like it's starting from a wrong assumption. 603-283-6160. More coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover brings her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Xi Jinping says there has been a significant loss of life following unprecedented floods in Henan province in central China. At least 25 people are dead and more than 100,000 displaced after what weather forecasters say is the highest level of rainfall in more than 1,000 years. FSN's Beijing bureau chief is Patrick Fock.
We are told that more than 60% of the city's annual rainfall all came down in a single day. The images that we've seen include pictures of roads completely submerged and cars getting washed away, as well as water bursting into subway stations. And of course, these harrowing images of people trapped in trains almost neck deep in water.
The European Union is rebuffing British desires to renegotiate post-Brexit trade arrangements for Northern Ireland. The government in London says the current protocol is unsustainable. From FSN's Brussels bureau, Lucy Hoff reports.
The British government is now looking to substantially rewrite the arrangement with the EU, citing a febrile political climate in Northern Ireland, trade barriers across the Irish Sea, and disruption to businesses. The EU says it is willing to seek creative solutions within the framework of the protocol, but won't agree to a full renegotiation.
In fresh evidence of America's political polarization, Republicans in the House of Representatives now say they will conduct their own investigation into the January 6th insurrection by Donald Trump's conspiracy theory-believing supporters. Democrat Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, rejected the Republican Party's nominees to join a bipartisan probe. The Republicans' leader, Congressman Kevin McCarthy.
Pelosi has created a sham process. Unless Speaker Pelosi reverses course and seats all 5 Republicans, we will not participate.
But the Democrats say it would be ludicrous to include Republican members who tried to overturn the outcome of last November's election. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, has been defending his conduct in the dying weeks of the Trump administration. He made a rare appearance in the briefing room at the Pentagon.
The United States military is an apolitical institution. We were then, we are now. And our oath is to the Constitution, not to any individual at all. The military did not and will not and should not ever get involved in domestic politics. We don't arbitrate elections.
General Milley's actions are questioned in a series of new books about the Trump presidency. The mayor of Liverpool says it is incomprehensible that UNESCO is stripping the city's famed waterfront of its World Heritage status. UNESCO says recent developments, including plans for Everton's new football stadium, have resulted in a serious deterioration of the site. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, Pegasus, the software that can turn your phone into a piece of technology that spies on you without you ever knowing it. A major international investigation by 16 news organizations has alleged that the software, manufactured by Israeli company NSO, has been used by several international governments to gather information about at least 50,000 separate targets globally. They include, we learnt yesterday, the French President Emmanuel Macron. John Scott Railton of Citizen Lab is one of the researchers who exposed the dark underbelly of Pegasus.
One of the things that for years we've known about this kind of spyware company is that they sell to autocrats and dictators. Autocrats and dictators do autocratic and dictatorial things with these technologies. What we're learning today, and increasingly now, is that officials of Western governments, including the French President Emmanuel Macron, as well as governments around the world, are also targeted. That includes a large list of sitting prime ministers, 3 presidents, and a king, all targeted with this stuff. If a president of France can be targeted with this, what chance do you have?
NSO calls the allegations about its software false. The company says it's considering a defamation lawsuit against the media organizations behind the probe. It claims to sell its technology only to vetted law enforcement and intelligence agencies. The main news again. President Xi Jinping says there has been a significant loss of life following unprecedented floods in central China. The European Union is rebuffing British plans to renegotiate post-Brexit trade arrangements for Northern Ireland. And the mayor of Liverpool says it is incomprehensible that UNESCO is stripping the city's famed waterfront of its World Heritage status. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
The military's newly developed unmanned Pentagon spokes drone completed its first live mission today, successfully carrying out a press conference on the war in Iraq. The Mobile Press Engagement Unit is being hailed by Pentagon officials as a revolutionary advancement in protecting military personnel.
The spokes drone proved effective at neutralizing reporters' questions about 85% of the time.
Many officials say the unit has the potential to save countless careers. Using a high-tech gimbal camera and microphone system, the unit tracks reporters' movements and audio output, then analyzes the data to assess the threat level.
It formulates and deploys an effectively vague response.
We have taken away a number of the enemy sanctuaries and gained initiatives in the areas. Eileen.
Military technology experts see the unit as adaptable to a wide variety of treacherous interview scenarios. They estimated it could even withstand situations too hostile for any human spokesman to bear, such as anti-war documentary interviews.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160 if you want to join the discussion. It's 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Angie,
and Bonnie.
And we were talking about the January 6th insurrection, but that's not the only thing that's happened in the last year worth talking about. There was the Michigan kidnapping case where this group of people were... The media is characterizing it as kidnapping her, which I think is interesting considering these people wanted to arrest her. They wanted to execute a citizen's arrest against her. And the media realizes that, arresting people is kidnapping them, but not when the police do it, apparently. So the Michigan kidnapping case is a major test for the Biden administration's commitment to fighting domestic terrorism. Oh, it's domestic terrorism when citizens arrest politicians. And a crucible for the fierce ideological divisions pulling the country apart. In the inky darkness, this is going to be good. In the inky darkness of a late summer night last September, 3 cars filled with armed men began circling Birch Lake in northern Michigan looking for ways to approach Governor Whitmer's 3-bedroom vacation cottage, subdue her, using a stun gun if necessary, and drag her away.
And these were citizens?
Yes.
I like where this is going.
This is the first you've heard about it?
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Oh, yeah. So these people were planning to arrest the governor of Michigan for her COVID-19 restrictions.
Way to be proactive.
I only ever heard that it was like a kidnap thing, so I didn't hear about that either.
Well, that's an arrest.
Yep.
Right? It's just which word you choose to describe it. I would say that it was an arrest, not a justified arrest. I'm not saying it was, but there's no functional difference between kidnapping and arrest. One vehicle stopped to check out a boat launch, while a second searched in vain for the right house in the thick woods ringing the lake. The third car ran counter surveillance, using night vision goggles to look out for cops and handheld radios to communicate with the others. Earlier, they had scoped out a bridge over the Elk River just a few miles away, scrambling down under the span to figure out where plastic explosives would need to be placed to blow it sky high. Wow.
Wait, what were they blowing up?
A bridge.
Oh, wow.
That would slow police response, giving the men time to escape with the governor. I never heard of the details of their plan, but it was apparently pretty thought out. Yeah. The governor had infuriated them by imposing COVID lockdowns, among other outrages, and they wanted to either take her to Lake Michigan, where they could abandon her on a boat, or whisk her to Wisconsin, where she could be tried as a tyrant. I don't know anything about trying to abandon her on a boat. I had always heard they wanted her to be tried as a tyrant. I didn't know they planned to take her to Wisconsin for that.
Yeah, I was going to say, does Wisconsin try politicians? I've never heard that before.
Illinois does, and I would recommend that. I mean, just about every Illinois governor ends up in jail. I don't know how many actually end up in jail, but...
That's crazy. Why would you even run for governor?
Because of power? What they end up getting charged with like corruption and stuff like that.
Do they get paid a lot of money?
I have no idea. I just know that it's a thing where Illinois governors end up with some regularity
And
going
why
to
can't
prison.
everyone, press charges on their governor? Why does it just have to be certain states? Is it just like a state thing?
I don't know. It may just be an Illinois thing. Everybody down with what's going on? An Iraq war veteran in the group demanded to know when they ended their recon mission, well past midnight at a campsite where they were all staying. If you're not down with the thought of kidnapping, someone else replied, don't sit here. Interesting, but who knows if that's what they really said. The men planned for all kinds of obstacles, but there was one they didn't anticipate. The FBI had been listening in all along. For 6 months, the Iraq war vet had been wearing a wire, gathering hundreds of hours of recording. He wasn't the only one. A biker who had traveled from Wisconsin to join the group was another informant. The man who'd advised them on where to put the explosives and offered to get them as much as the task would require was, an undercover FBI agent. Look, if someone says, we put the explosives, let's plan to kidnap the governor, and this is where we're going to put the explosives on this bridge, and I can get you all the explosives you want, there's your federal agent. So was a man in one of the other cars who said little and went by the name Mark. So it seems that 2 of these 3 people, did I understand that correctly? No, 3 cars.
3 cars full of people,
not 3 people. So at least 2 FBI informants / agents were there. Just over 3 weeks later, federal and state agents swooped in and arrested more than a dozen men accused of participating in what a federal prosecutor called a deeply disturbing criminal conspiracy hatched over months in secret meetings, on encrypted chats, and in paramilitary-style training exercises.
Not in encrypted chats.
Yeah, they love going after those, man. 7 of them, and that's part of the issue with encrypted chats. It's not protecting you if there's an FBI agent or multiple in the chat. 7 of the men who had driven to Birch Lake that night would end up in jail. The case made international headlines, with the Justice Department touting it as an example of law enforcement agencies, quote, working together to make sure violent extremists never succeed with their plans. Prosecutors alleged that the kidnapping of the governor was just the first step in what some on the right called the Big Boog, a long-awaited civil war that would overthrow the government and return the United States to some supposed Revolutionary War era ideal, which would then immediately become just like the modern United States did. The defendants, for their part, see it very differently. They say they were set up. The audacious plot to kidnap a sitting governor, seen by many as a precursor to the January 6th assault. They always call it, now it's an assault on the U.S. Capitol by hundreds of Trump-supporting protesters, has become one of the most important domestic terrorism investigations in a generation. The prosecutor has already emerged as a critical test for how the Biden administration approaches the growing threat of homegrown anti-government groups. Well, there's nothing wrong with a homegrown. Look, if your government is producing homegrown anti-government groups, then your government is doing something wrong. More than that, though, the case epitomizes the ideological divisions that have riven the country over the last several years. To some, the FBI's infiltration of the innermost circle of armed anti-government groups is a model for how to successfully forestall dangerous acts of domestic terrorism. But for others, it's an example of precisely the kind of outrageous government overreach that radicalizes people in the first place, and increasingly a flashpoint for deep state conspiracy theories. The government has documented at least 12 confidential informants who assisted the sprawling investigation. I can't imagine they had that many people. That 12 of this group of people they arrested 12 people. And they also have 12 confidential informants who were assisting with the investigation.
So there were 24 people?
Presumably,
Yeah.
at least 24 people.
So 50% of the people were informants.
Well, we don't know exactly how many people there were, but 50% of the people...
If there were 24 and there were 12 arrested and 12 were...
Well, we don't know how many people were a part of it but weren't arrested.
Okay.
Or part of the paramilitary training or whatever. We just don't know.
Because how do you not know that, one of 50% of the people that you're hanging out with are federal agents? How are you not clued in on that?
Because they're not actually principled. I think these people got what they want or what they deserve because they plan to do something violent. You get what you deserve. I think kidnapping is violent.
I would agree. The trove of evidence they helped gather provides an unprecedented view into American extremism, laying out in stunning detail the ways that anti-government groups network with each other and in some cases discuss violent actions. An examination of the case also reveals that some of those informants, acting under the direction of the FBI, played a far larger role than has previously been reported. Working in secret, they did more than just passively observe and report on the actions of the suspects. Instead, they had a hand in nearly every aspect of the alleged plot, starting with its inception. The extent of their involvement raises questions as to whether there would have been a conspiracy without them. A longtime government informant from Wisconsin, for example, helped organize a series of meetings around the country where many of the alleged plotters first met one another and the earliest notions of a plan took root. The Wisconsin informant even paid for some hotel rooms and food as an incentive to get people to come. And this was an FBI agent basically paying people
There's
to
no way
come.
that they can actually charge these people with this now.
I don't know. I mean, they're going to try. But what are your thoughts? It sounds to me like the FBI played way too heavy of a hand here. 603-283-6160. More coming up here about this. It's Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Free Talk Live.
The way I do psychic readings is a little bit different. I read the veins of your penis, and I can tell your future.
That is a new one.
Is this a hands-on procedure?
Yeah. Well, what
does it come with a happy ending?
Or no, guys, I'm a businessman. I'm very professional. I'll tell you why I think he arrested me. I told him, I said, I can see right here that your life's going to be very short. He got upset and arrested me.
So he thought that you were making a comment about his size.
Yeah,
is what
the
you're
size
saying.
of his. Yeah. Look here, I'm only interested in the veins, and I'm very professional.
Now, where did you learn this technique?
Oh, at my dad.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. And one of the things that's been fascinating me so much over the last few months, it really came to a head when we were talking about the Moors, who was this group of people who recently made headlines because they were in Massachusetts and open carrying. And the way that the article we talked about characterized the people and what they were doing was just amazingly slanted. Like, they described an armed standoff in the woods with state police. They had to bring in a hostage negotiator to help, ease the situation and help it come to an end. And they specifically used the word hostage negotiator, but there were no hostages. So they just brought in a hostage.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because I remember reading about it, but I never read that there was any hostage.
There was never any hostage.
What were they negotiating?
They were negotiating to end the tense situation.
Okay.
But they said hostage negotiator in a way of making people subliminally think that there were hostages
They could have just said
here.
there was a negotiator brought on scene.
Yes,
yeah, that's probably just like one of his other jobs or something. It's crazy.
And now that I've, become aware of that, I'm seeing it everywhere. Like with the arrest and kidnapping thing here, the media very clearly knows that arresting someone is kidnapping.
Right.
And these people who were planning to, quote, kidnap or arrest the Michigan governor, the media is characterizing it as a kidnapping.
It's so funny. There's two examples of things that the government did to me and you on March 16th, and they're characterizing it as a bad thing if it's done to the government. The first was, they went into somebody's house without asking. They did that to us.
Yeah.
And they also kidnapped you and my boyfriend.
They did. The Iraq War vet, who was an informant for the FBI, for those who weren't here a moment ago, became so deeply enmeshed in a Michigan militant group that he rose to become its second in command. The FBI informant was the second in command. And he encouraged members to collaborate with other potential suspects and paid for their transportation to meetings. He prodded the alleged mastermind of the kidnapping plot to advance his plan, then baited the trap that led to the arrest. This account is based on an analysis of court findings, transcripts, exhibits, audio recordings, and other documents, as well as interviews with more than 24 people with direct knowledge of the case, including several who were present at the meetings and training sessions where prosecutors say that the plot was hatched. All but one of the 14 original defendants have pleaded not guilty, and they vigorously deny that they were involved in a conspiracy to kidnap anyone. Then they have a bunch of, posts here, their social media posts and their supposed planning. Who knows? The prosecution gathered thousands of social media posts, some 400,000 text messages, good God, and more than 1,300 hours of recordings. I can't imagine the size of the discovery in this case, including audio or video from all three vehicles. So all three of the vehicles had an informant or FBI agent in them. It alleges traveled to Birch Lake on the night of September the 12th. It maintains that this evidence shows many of those who were charged not only expressed anti-government sentiments, which isn't a crime, and it's not. They're using anti-government sentiment in the same way that the government uses hate crime legislation. Sure, anti-government sentiments aren't a hate crime, but aren't a crime. But if you do something criminal, the fact that you have anti-government sentiments is going to be used against you to make your sentence harsher. Just like, with hate crimes. If you kill someone and they happen to be a protected minority, it's not illegal to hate that person, but you're going to be sentenced worse based on that. But they also took concrete steps toward the goal of kidnapping or killing law enforcement officers and elected officials. I don't know that they took concrete steps toward killing law enforcement officials, not having looked at these 400,000 text messages, but it sounds like they wanted to prevent law enforcement officials from getting there, which is not killing them. But the defendants, as well as others called in the sweeping investigation, which swept from Baltimore to Kansas City, claimed the talk never rose beyond the level of fantasy, and they never intended to harm anyone. That argument's not going to hold up.
No, because they were in cars driving around this place.
Yeah.
With bombs.
Yeah, so that's not okay.
It definitely went beyond the level of fantasy, dudes. Although they have not denied participating in training events, attending meetings, and communicating with other defendants, they claim that no actual conspiracy to kidnap the governor ever existed. Instead, they say they were targeted because of their political views. Some describe the case as a premeditated campaign by the government to undermine the Patriot movement, an ideology based on fealty to the Second Amendment and the conviction that the government has violated the Constitution and is therefore illegitimate. Now, I don't know anything about the Patriot movement, but they sound correct. The government has absolutely violated the Constitution repeatedly.
And is illegitimate.
But that's no reason to kidnap anyone or arrest anyone. They argue that the recordings and text messages that the government calls proof of a criminal conspiracy are in fact constitutionally protected speech, expressions of frustration at what they see as the government's betrayal of its citizens. Attorneys for all but one of the defendants declined invitations to comment on the record for this story. To date, one defendant has formally accused the government of entrapment, arguing that the FBI assembled the key plotters, encouraged the group's anti-government feelings, and even gave its members military-style training.
Well, I think that's accurate. I think that is exactly what happened.
It is accurate, but also they agreed to do it. So I think that it is kind of on them. If you agreed to do it, you should be,
there should be something for them.
If you're against what the government is doing, don't involve yourself in doing the same thing to other human beings.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's unclear whether or not they're probably not voluntarists and anarchists. So they probably don't have an issue with the government, criminalizing marijuana or heroin or something like that. So maybe they are sort of okay with the government kidnapping people. They just want it to be more restrained in how it does it. I don't know what their exact beliefs are, but they don't sound like voluntarists. To date, it certainly does sound like entrapment, though. Mm-hmm. I mean, the FBI set this up. And
they paid for hotels and meals. I mean,
free pizza if you come to a training event.
Yeah, you can come stay at this hotel with the swimming pool, and we'll take you to dinner.
Additional defendants have said they plan to make similar claims when the cases, divided between federal and state court, go to trial starting as soon as October. I don't know how they could possibly be going to trial that early with that many defendants, that large of a conspiracy, and that much discovery. Last week, the lawyer for one defendant filed a motion that included text from an FBI agent to a key informant, the Iraqi war veteran, directing him to draw specific people into the conspiracy, which is potential evidence of entrapment that he said the government, quote, inadvertently disclosed. So the FBI agent told one of the informants to draw specific people by name into the conspiracy.
Wow, that's scary.
He is requesting all texts sent and received by that informant, and other attorneys are now considering motions that accuse the government of intentionally withholding evidence of entrapment, which is what that means. Is that, the government didn't mean to disclose that. That was disclosed inadvertently. Well, then you're withholding evidence of entrapment because that's evidence of entrapment. I mean, this FBI agent specifically singled out individuals and said, get them involved.
Right.
I want to take them down.
Yep.
So reach out to them. Buy their pizza, get them hotel rooms, pay for their travel, whatever you got to do. Do you think this is entrapment? Do you think it's going too far? 603-283-6160.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Xi Jinping says there has been a significant loss of life following unprecedented floods in Henan province in central China. At least 25 people are dead and more than 100,000 displaced after what weather forecasters say is the highest level of rainfall in more than 1,000 years. FSN's Beijing bureau chief is Patrick Fock.
We are told that more than 60% of the city's annual rainfall all came down in a single day. The images that we've seen include pictures of roads completely submerged and cars getting washed away, as well as water bursting into subway stations. And of course, these harrowing images of people trapped in trains almost neck deep in water.
The European Union is rebuffing British desires to renegotiate post-Brexit trade arrangements for Northern Ireland. The government in London says the current protocol is unsustainable. From FSN's Brussels bureau, Lucy Hoff reports.
The British government is now looking to substantially rewrite the arrangement with the EU, citing a febrile political climate in Northern Ireland, trade barriers across the Irish Sea, and disruption to businesses. The EU says it is willing to seek creative solutions within the framework of the protocol, but won't agree to a full renegotiation.
In fresh evidence of America's political polarization, Republicans in the House of Representatives now say they will conduct their own investigation into the January 6th insurrection by Donald Trump's conspiracy theory-believing supporters. Democrat Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, rejected the Republican Party's nominees to join a bipartisan probe. The Republicans' leader, Congressman Kevin McCarthy.
Pelosi has created a sham process. Unless Speaker Pelosi reverses course and seats all 5 Republicans, we will not participate.
But the Democrats say it would be ludicrous to include Republican members who tried to overturn the outcome of last November's election. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, has been defending his conduct in the dying weeks of the Trump administration. He made a rare appearance in the briefing room at the Pentagon.
The United States military is an apolitical institution. We were then, we are now. And our oath is to the Constitution, not to any individual at all. The military did not and will not and should not ever get involved in domestic politics. We don't arbitrate elections.
General Milley's actions are questioned in a series of new books about the Trump presidency. The mayor of Liverpool says it is incomprehensible that UNESCO is stripping the city's famed waterfront of its World Heritage status. UNESCO says recent developments, including plans for Everton's new football stadium, have resulted in a serious deterioration of the site. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, where we've had video archives on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. I've been using LBRY for 4 or 5 years now. I absolutely love it.
I didn't know it was that old.
I don't remember exactly how long I've been. It was before I moved to New Hampshire, at the very least, was when I discovered it and started enjoying it. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, Odyssee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off, now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes. and could be taken completely down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so now we're there every night, posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or at any time on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. But if you want to go all in, they have an app. It's a desktop app, and you can find it at LBRY.com. That's LBRY.com. And then every video archive that you watch, you will help seed it and keep it online forever. At minimum, though, we do ask you to visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today, video.freetalklive.com. It certainly is an issue. I'm not sure whether or not the show is streaming on YouTube at all now, because it's kind of pointless. We haven't changed anything that we've said. So as soon as we're back on YouTube, it's just going to be a matter of days, if not weeks.
Do they just ban you and then you get your ban lifts and then you go back on and they ban you again?
Well, yes. When you receive a strike, they give you a suspension. The first one is 3 days. The second one, I think, the first one is 7 days. The second one is like 3 months or 2 months.
Okay.
I don't remember. It's quite a long time because we haven't been streaming on YouTube since March the 30th or somewhere around there.
May, June.
And
Yes.
that was because the second strike didn't expire for such a very long time. And if you receive a third strike on YouTube, they permanently delete your channel, including all of your videos.
Oh, wow.
So we were like, yeah, it's not worth the risk of losing all of these video archives to continue streaming at the moment. Let's wait until one of these strikes lift. But yeah, it's a very strange process. And every single appeal, we appealed all of them that we received. No reason given, just no, we decided that you're giving medical misinformation. I mean, did you know that we have a banner on Facebook now? Every time, well, I don't know
I didn't.
if it's every time, but last night, like within 30 seconds of Free Talk Live going live, Facebook had the click here for vaccine information thing down at the bottom.
No.
So, I mean, yeah.
I'm not on Facebook. I have Messenger, but I deactivated my account, so no, I don't see it.
Messenger is the primary reason that I still have Facebook. That and occasionally posting something.
Yeah.
I don't scroll through it or read the comments or anything like that.
I
but
wasted so much time on that thing.
yeah, it's what people do. They sit there scrolling through it. But I just don't do that. I post a thought and then I go. People get upset with me occasionally. Like, you never react to comments or you never reply back. I'm like, well, no, that's not what I'm using Facebook for.
Right.
I'm using it to communicate with you. If you want to communicate with me, shoot me a message. But I don't want to have or give a call to Free Talk Live. I don't want to have this conversation on social media about government. That's not activism, in my opinion. But there are so many libertarians out there who think that arguing with people on Facebook is activism. Or
people love to argue on there.
Or just, posting their opinions on Facebook is activism. It's like
They're making a difference.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, oh, I'm certain I've got my FBI agent because of the things I post on Facebook. Dude, if the entirety of your activism is posting on Facebook, you do not have an FBI file. And if they ever looked at you, they immediately wrote you off as harmless and threw that file into the shredder. So we're talking about the Governor Whitmer arrest attempt by these individuals in Michigan, and everything that we're hearing sounds a lot like entrapment. One of the main informants was an Iraq War veteran, and the FBI directed him to get specific people wrapped up in the conspiracy. So the FBI agent presumably had it because he had a grudge against these people or whatever. We don't know his reasons, but he was like, hey, Iraq War veteran who's informing me, I want you to take this person, that person, and this person, and I want you to get them involved. That's certainly entrapment. If they can identify who those individuals were, the case against them has to get thrown out, I would imagine.
I would hope so.
Meanwhile, Gregory Townsend, one of the lead prosecutors handling the cases against 8 of the defendants in Michigan State Court, was reassigned in May pending an attorney general audit into whether he had withheld evidence about deals cut with informants during a murder and arson trial in Oakland County. On Sunday, in a matter apparently unrelated to the alleged arrest conspiracy, they keep calling it a kidnapping conspiracy, but just to drive that point home, I'm going to keep calling it an arrest conspiracy. One of the lead FBI agents in the case, Richard Trask, was charged in state court in Kalamazoo with assault with intent to do great bodily harm. Well, steroids cause people to make poor decisions. A spokesperson for the Michigan Attorney General's office said that the defendant's claims are not indisputable facts. adding that the office will counter and correct these issues in court. The Department of Justice declined requests for an interview or to provide comment for this article, citing its policy not to discuss pending criminal cases. An FBI spokesperson said the Bureau is aware of the charges against Trask, but declined further comment for this article. Now, I may have missed it. Trask was one of the lead FBI agents in the case. Presumably, he could have been the one who said, hey, find these particular individuals and get them involved. Claiming government entrapment is a common strategy in domestic terrorism cases, in part because it is among the only available defenses if prosecutors have evidence from extensive surveillance. Such defenses usually fail, and most domestic terrorism defendants are convicted, or they accept a plea deal. But not always. Less than a decade ago, for example, an apocalyptic Christian group in Michigan was prosecuted for allegedly plotting to murder police officers. Among other things, hold on. An apocalyptic Christian group in Michigan was prosecuted for allegedly plotting to murder police officers.
That's really surprising. Apocalyptic Christian groups usually seem to be kind of pro-government.
How could they possibly not have included a link to the news article about this? I want to know more about the apocalyptic Christian group that wanted to kill cops.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
I'm going to Google it.
That's insane. Among other things, the defendants claimed that the entire conspiracy was instigated by deeply embedded FBI informants, and the defendants were ultimately acquitted by the judge. That makes more sense. Because most Christians, especially if they're the apocalyptic type, tend to be pro-cop. Unless they're the Waco apocalyptic style.
I don't know anything about their beliefs.
Well, Waco wasn't actually apocalyptic, but who am I thinking of then? The people who drank all the poison to get on the Heaven's Gate cult. They were apocalyptic. They probably weren't fans of cops. Since its founding 113 years ago, Jesus Christ, the FBI is old. The FBI has relied upon and often paid confidential informants to aid in criminal investigations.
Did you say 113 years old?
113 years old. Starting in the late 1950s, it has employed them specifically to infiltrate dissident groups and spy on targeted individuals, including Black Panthers and Martin Luther King Jr., notoriously going after Martin Luther King Jr. The tactic has a decidedly mixed record.
That militia group was from 2010.
Wow, they didn't even get the year right.
March 29th, 2010.
What year did
Well, they said less than a decade ago, didn't they? So I don't know why I thought it was the year 2000 for some reason that they said.
Yeah.
Is there any more about them?
Yeah, there's quite a bit about it.
I mean, it sounds super fascinating.
Yeah, we can go into it if you want after this.
Yeah, absolutely. The tactic has a decidedly mixed record, as we said, but informants have also coerced innocent people, falsified evidence, and even committed murder while working for the FBI. Shocking. People working for the FBI accidentally killed someone or purposefully killed someone. The Bureau's reliance on informants, much criticized in the 70s, received renewed scrutiny in the wake of 9/11 when they were used to probe Muslim groups for alleged involvement in Islamic terrorism. So that's, oh God, this just keeps going. I'm going to dig through it during the break to see if there's more worth discussing, but I think they made a pretty clear case that the FBI played a very heavy hand here. And of course, we suspected that would be the case because the FBI has been doing this sort of thing for a long time. But what are your thoughts? 603-283-6160.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com. Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You're welcome to join in. 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria,
Angie,
and Bonnie.
And this article that we've been talking about, it discusses an FBI agent named Trask and how he has pending charges for intent to commit serious grief. I don't remember the terminology they use. Serious bodily harm or something like that. As it turns out, what they're referring to is on Sunday night, he and his wife had an argument over the attendance of a swingers party. It doesn't go into more detail than that. I don't know if she wanted to go and he didn't, or what the situation was. Oh, apparently it does go into detail. And he got angry, and as cops tend to do, he started beating her, ended up bashing her head into the nightstand and choking her. And he was released, this person who did that, who, smashed his wife's head into a nightstand and then choked her.
Yeah, he's not a violent person or anything. He doesn't need to be held for, 3 or 4 months like Ian.
Yes, he was released on PR, which is personal recognizance, which is, oh yeah, he'll be good while he's out. There's no need to detain them or anything like that. This isn't a violent person we're dealing with. This person whose literal career is violence. Insane. And it's all because, he's an FBI agent. So they're not going to hold him, even though he's very clearly a threat to people in society. So back into this article, According to Greg Rogers, who's a retired FBI agent who spent 2 decades working undercover on cases involving domestic terrorism, and he has a torso covered with gang tattoos to show it, the standard playbook for domestic terrorism investigations is to start with an informant who can infiltrate a group and gain trust, and then bring in undercover agents. That's an even bigger necessity in this era of social media, when informants are often vetted based on their online identities, which are hard to fake. I used to attend militia conferences and gun shows, but I never got into a group without being introduced by an informant first, Rogers said. Many informants agree to help the government because they have gotten themselves sideways with the law and are hoping to get their charges dismissed, have their sentences reduced, or win over other favors from prosecutors. Others are in it for the money, and holy crap, is there evidently a lot of money in it. One longtime federal informant has allegedly hauled in $4.9 million in government payments over the last 2 decades. That is a lot of silver for Judas to be wanting, I have to say. It's far less common for the FBI to recruit an informant, as it did with Dan, simply by appealing to his better nature. On March the 17th, Dan officially went on the FBI's books under the codename Thor. Dan could deceive the Wolverine Watchmen or other suspects, but he had to be truthful with the FBI. He could participate in the group's activities, but he had to stop short of anything illegal. Well, that's a new change for the FBI.
Was he one of the people that were riding around in the cars?
Presumably, yes.
So wouldn't that be illegal? You're going to commit, you mean you're riding around with a thing going to commit a crime?
Well, they were still in the planning stages at that point.
That wasn't the execution night.
No, the execution night was still weeks away when the FBI...
I understand.
As a matter of law, convincing people with no prior intention to commit crimes is known as entrapment and is to be strenuously avoided by law enforcement. Federal agents and informants are instead supposed to passively develop evidence against people who are already, quote, predisposed to do illegal things, serving only as the eyes and ears of the prosecution. In practical terms, however, confidential informants enjoy tremendous leeway to get the goods. Informants in cases over recent decades have badgered suspects into committing crimes, paid them large sums of money to do so, and even threatened to hurt them if they backed out, according to Jesse Norris, a professor of criminal justice.
So they're a bunch of bullies.
They are.
They probably didn't get in any trouble for doing that.
No, of course not.
No, and got in no trouble. In fact, they were probably paid better. I mean, they threatened to hurt people if they backed out. They paid them large sums of money. That's the FBI informants out there. That's what they're doing.
Yep.
In not one of those instances, however, was the prosecution forced to drop the case. So Dan got to work. Within weeks, he was deeply ensconced within the Watchmen, training with them on weekends and teaching them the tactical skills that he had picked up in the Army. At first, the FBI focused on the 3 founding members, Musico, also known as Grandpa, Joe Morrison, and Paul Ballar. And it gives a little bit of personal information about them. In due time, however, the FBI expanded its target list to include not only the entire group, but potential suspects as far away as Virginia. On the final day of April 2020, the Watchmen went to the state capitol in Lansing to join a big protest against Whitner's COVID-19 stay-at-home order. Dan wore a wire for the first time, traveling to the event with Musico, Morrison, and Ballar. The men were decked out in ballistic body armor, brandishing pistols and AR-15 assault rifles, which was standard for the hundreds of protesters amassing in Lansing that morning. They were there, Morrison and Musico said, to recruit new members, but around noon, as they milled among the crowd, Dan started hearing whispers about storming the Capitol. Less than 2 weeks earlier, the Watchmen had built a mock-up of a house using PVC tubing, and Dan helped show them how to push inside before clearing each room, techniques he learned in the Army. The Watchmen referred to it as a, quote, kill house. I don't know what the significance of that is. Now, outside the Capitol, it appeared they might be preparing to put the training to use, this time with hundreds of state police officers standing between them and the imposing Renaissance Revival building. Ballar was getting amped, Dan would later recall in court. He described Musico, saying he wanted to circle the building, where he would wait for Whitner, and said some nasty stuff. So Dan panicked. He slipped away from the group for a moment and spoke into the recording device he was carrying, which he knew was being monitored live by his FBI handlers. The Watchmen, he said, were preparing to breach the Capitol. The agents couldn't speak back to him, but he hoped they could at least warn the police about what was coming. Then something surprising happened. The Michigan State Police stood down and let the protesters, including those in full tactical gear, enter the building unopposed. They could even bring their guns, as long as they submitted to a temperature check for COVID-19. That is not the end of that sentence I expected.
Oh, gosh.
Wow. They could even bring their guns.
Just let me take your temperature. Okay, you're good. Pass.
Wow. What a world we live in. The watchmen rushed to the building's second floor. Musico urged the increasingly frenzied crowd to push forward. When he spotted state troopers, he got in their faces, screaming, taking pictures of their badges, and daring them to touch him. It sounds like they encountered some well-trained state troopers.
Yeah.
Just standing by like the old royal guards that, we imagine just standing there not reacting. Everywhere in the crowd was a sturdily built, bearded man with an imposing AR-15 style assault rifle slung over his vest and the brightly colored Hawaiian shirt that has become a hallmark among Boogaloo boys. At the time, 37-year-old Adam Fox had no close ties to any militant group, but he had been searching for one where he would fit in. Fox was living with his dogs in the basement of a friend's vacuum repair shop.
Oh, wow.
These are
the people that they target. The ones that, could actually use some help.
Yeah, clearly dude is down on his luck.
Yeah.
And, lacking long-term employment, he smoked weed and spent hours on Facebook looking to make connections with other members of the Patriot community.
I get it.
So they targeted this dude who was down on his luck and lonely and wasting his time instead of doing something productive, granted, but,
he was a Facebook
no one is
activist.
perfect all the time. And he was having a particularly bad period. His main outlet was weightlifting. Keller, who was with him on April 30th, Keller they probably identified at some point in this article, but I skipped over it because a lot of it really isn't very interesting, and neither is whatever Keller had to say. The watchmen, meanwhile, had worked their way toward an office they thought was Whitmer's and were banging hard on the door. Photojournalists began snapping pictures, and the three lined up in the hallway to pose menacingly for the cameras. But there was no actual violence, and the crowds eventually left without further incident. The shocking spectacle of the militants occupying the Capitol grabbed the media's attention. It was, as the Associated Press reported, an unsettling symbol of rising tensions in a nation grappling with crisis. It sounded like everything went fine.
Yeah, and they probably moved out of the way and let them in so nothing got broken, no one got hurt. They were like, let's just let these people in.
It sounds like some really good decisions were made.
I think so.
This guy was like, hey, being an FBI informant, definitely not the best decision. But this guy was one, and he said, hey, they're planning to storm the building. And whoever was in charge said, okay, well, we don't want this to turn into a bloodbath.
Yep.
So stand down.
Yep.
Just let them in. And just let them in as long as they freaking get their temperature taken.
Because we don't want COVID.
Is this the January 6th at the Capitol? Is that what you've been describing?
No, this was at the Lansing State House.
How come I never
Capitol
heard about
building.
this one?
As far as I understand it, this was not the...
Because it wasn't Trump's fault. That's why you didn't hear about it.
Yeah, I was like,
yes,
sounds
this was
like the
in
same
Michigan.
thing.
The Michigan State Police were the ones who stood down. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss that because I just assumed it was in Michigan. It was. What are your thoughts on this? Who was in the right here? I tend to think that the state troopers, believe it or not, handled it as well as they could have. But maybe you think differently. 603-283-6160. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Xi Jinping says there has been a significant loss of life following unprecedented floods in Henan province in central China. At least 25 people are dead and more than 100,000 displaced after what weather forecasters say is the highest level of rainfall in more than 1,000 years. FSN's Beijing bureau chief is Patrick Fock.
We are told that more than 60% of the city's annual rainfall all came down in a single day. The images that we've seen include pictures of roads completely submerged and cars getting washed away, as well as water bursting into subway stations. And of course, these harrowing images of people trapped in trains almost neck deep in water.
The European Union is rebuffing British desires to renegotiate post-Brexit trade arrangements for Northern Ireland. The government in London says the current protocol is unsustainable. From FSN's Brussels bureau, Lucy Hoff reports.
The British government is now looking to substantially rewrite the arrangement with the EU, citing a febrile political climate in Northern Ireland, trade barriers across the Irish Sea, and disruption to businesses. The EU says it is willing to seek creative solutions within the framework of the protocol, but won't agree to a full renegotiation.
In fresh evidence of America's political polarization, Republicans in the House of Representatives now say they will conduct their own investigation into the January 6th insurrection by Donald Trump's conspiracy theory-believing supporters. Democrat Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, rejected the Republican Party's nominees to join a bipartisan probe. The Republicans' leader, Congressman Kevin McCarthy.
Pelosi has created a sham process. Unless Speaker Pelosi reverses course and seats all 5 Republicans, we will not participate.
But the Democrats say it would be ludicrous to include Republican members who tried to overturn the outcome of last November's election. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, has been defending his conduct in the dying weeks of the Trump administration. He made a rare appearance in the briefing room at the Pentagon.
The United States military is an apolitical institution. We were then, we are now. And our oath is to the Constitution, not to any individual at all. The military did not and will not and should not ever get involved in domestic politics. We don't arbitrate elections.
General Milley's actions are questioned in a series of new books about the Trump presidency. The mayor of Liverpool says it is incomprehensible that UNESCO is stripping the city's famed waterfront of its World Heritage status. UNESCO says recent developments, including plans for Everton's new football stadium, have resulted in a serious deterioration of the site. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, Pegasus, the software that can turn your phone into a piece of technology that spies on you without you ever knowing it. A major international investigation by 16 news organizations has alleged that the software, manufactured by Israeli company NSO, has been used by several international governments to gather information about at least 50,000 separate targets globally. They include, we learnt yesterday, by the French President Emmanuel Macron. John Scott Railton of Citizen Lab is one of the researchers who exposed the dark underbelly of Pegasus.
One of the things that for years we've known about this kind of spyware company is that they sell to autocrats and dictators. Autocrats and dictators do autocratic and dictatorial things with these technologies. What we're learning today, and increasingly now, is that officials of Western governments, including the French President Emmanuel Macron, as well as governments around the world, are also targeted. That includes a large list of sitting prime ministers, 3 presidents, and a king, all targeted with this stuff. If a president of France can be targeted with this, what chance do you have?
NSO calls the allegations about its software false. The company says it's considering a defamation lawsuit against the media organizations behind the probe. It claims to sell its technology only to vetted law enforcement and intelligence agencies. The main news again. President Xi Jinping says there has been a significant loss of life following unprecedented floods in central China. The European Union is rebuffing British plans to renegotiate post-Brexit trade arrangements for Northern Ireland. And the mayor of Liverpool says it is incomprehensible that UNESCO is stripping the city's famed waterfront of its World Heritage status. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
According to members of the 1998 University of Virginia graduating class, Governor Jim Gilmore's commencement speech to them continues to be a deep well of wisdom and guidance even 15 years after it was delivered. Classmates confirmed that while friends at other universities heard from such figures as Jimmy Carter, Kurt Vonnegut, and the Dalai Lama, the inspirational words of Virginia's 68th governor continues to profoundly inform their lives and actions.
Whenever I face a dark moment in my life, I just think back to Governor Gilmore's speech, and it almost instantly puts things back into perspective. It's like he said, go forward and be successful and achieve your hopes and dreams and aspirations. All I can say is I hope I've lived up to that incredible lesson.
And in local news, a 5-year-old figures he has about a year left of peeing at urinals with his pants all the way down. In other news, using the amount of toothpaste shown in commercials is a disgusting experience. A grizzled proofreader has seen it written both ways, and a cackling Warren Buffett burns his entire fortune in front of the nation.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in. 603-283-6160. With you tonight is Aria, Bonnie, and Angie. And we're talking about the FBI's involvement with the plot to kidnap Governor Whitmer. And it goes into I would even say exhaustive detail about some of the members here and some of, what they were alleged to have done, some of the planning, some of the organization, and all of that. But it also goes into a number of other groups that have been infiltrated by the FBI. And evidently, this is what the FBI does. So if you have any sort of group and you're not 100% pro-government, go ahead and assume that at least one of the members of your group is an active FBI informant.
One or more, because there were quite a few in this group.
Yes, 12 people are currently being charged in the, quote, plot to arrest Governor Whitmer, and there were 12 FBI agents and informants involved in the charges. So, for whatever that's worth, there's probably a lot of them out there. Moving on in the article, though, Stephen Robeson, a burly concrete and asphalt contractor from central Wisconsin, had helped organize a national meeting, and he was enthusiastically pushing people he knew to attend. This was a national meeting of various militias, is basically what it was. I skipped over a large section of the article because, like I said, it's exhausted. The word count on this thing has got to be 20, 30,000 words. So he wanted Thomas Leger, a gun lobbyist from Wisconsin, later was invited by Robinson so many times that he'd lost count. Despite the pressure, Leger, busy with other things, declined to go. Jeremy Dieter, a 3%er. What are the 3%ers? I've heard it before, but I don't recall.
I can't remember. I've heard of it before, too.
He lived only 20 miles from where the meeting was to be held, and he wasn't sure he would go either. But Robinson called him so often that he finally relented. On the morning of June the 6th, Accompanied by his wife and daughter, he drove to the Drury Inn and Suites in Dublin, a suburb of Columbus. Robison, known as Roby, was a heavily tattooed biker with a shaggy tuft of beard springing from his chin.
Why do they keep? Yeah,
I don't know.
They're really focusing on those beards.
The 3%ers are anti-government extremists who are part of militia movements.
Okay, well, everyone's an extremist nowadays, according to, the narrative being put forward. So they're anti-government. Why do they call themselves the 3%ers?
I don't know.
Okay. There was a lot they didn't know about this guy, other than evidently the fact that he had a beard, but they didn't know that he had a lengthy criminal record. By the time he was 20, Roby had been busted for car theft and soon added battery, possession of stolen property, forgery, disorderly conduct, theft. We're not done yet. Writing worthless checks, sex with a minor. We're still not done yet. Bail jumping, insurance fraud.
Sounds like they should give this guy a badge.
This dude, by the time he was 20, no, he added those shortly after turning 20. It doesn't say how old he was at the time of these incidents, though. And the other members had no inkling that in March 1985, in an arson and murder trial of members of a notorious biker gang called the Ghost Riders, Roby had testified for the prosecution. According to court records, Roby had helped the government put people away at least 3 times in the 80s and again in 2005 when he provided information about a farmer who was seeking to pay someone to kill a romantic rival or leave him, quote, crippled for life.
Oh my goodness.
Under direction from the police, Robison, I don't know which one is supposed to be correct, told the farmer he'd put him in touch with someone who could do the job. That turned out to be an undercover police officer who, over lunch at a restaurant, recorded the farmer offering a hay baler in exchange for the act of violence.
Hay baler.
Not money. A hay baler.
That's great.
The farmer eventually pled guilty to solicitation of battery. Outside of his frequent legal adventures, Roby formed and led a group called the Wisconsin Patriot 3%ers. And it was under the auspices of that organization that he started organizing the Dublin meeting. So the organizer of this Dublin meeting became an informant for the FBI, presumably to help with his criminal rap sheet, which was quite extensive. The 3%ers are a national organization named after the disputed notion that it was just 3% of American colonists who rose up and took arms against British rule. I don't know if that's factually true or not. I know that, I think it was Jefferson who said that roughly a third of us were patriots, a third of us were loyalists, and a third of us were indifferent.
I don't know if it's true or not, but it sounds really good.
I mean, yeah. I can't imagine more than 3% of people actually being galvanized enough to take up arms, but who knows? I was not there. The group, loosely organized and highly fractious, was founded in 2008 by, the overall national group, by Michael Vanderboe, who believed that the government had drifted far from its constitutional ideals and was working at sliding into outright tyranny. Well, maybe that's because the government has drifted far from its constitutional ideals and is sliding into outright tyranny. That's not to say that a militia is the tool to fix the problem here, but the problem does exist.
What do you think the tool is? Because I think in the case of these people trying to kidnap the governor, they would have just been more effective if they had just ignored the governor's orders than even if they actually kidnapped her.
Civil disobedience is a good way. Like if everyone just stopped obeying the police, stopped obeying the government, then yes, the government would not have the police force or the military to actually respond to that. And they probably would ultimately back down once they realize that, we don't actually have the manpower to enforce these laws that cause the average American to commit 3 or 5 felonies a day. I don't remember how many there actually are, but if people were actually not obeying, I think that would be good. I think doing that as seceding from the federal government, which has become tyrannical, and have something more localized that you can exercise a little bit more control over is a good way to achieve it. But really, I don't think there is a tool here on Earth for the job that is stronger than cryptocurrency. The government needs money to do this stuff. And to that end, they create their own money. And they create it out of thin air. They can create as much of it.
They just print it.
Yes, they can create. Well, they don't even print most of it anymore.
No, they just put it in accounts.
Yeah.
They're like, here you go.
And that's how they pay for their oppression. That's how they pay for their wars. And the money they use it's only popular right now. I mean, it's only useful in the world right now because so many companies are beholden to the American military. I mean, so many countries are beholden to the American military and terrified of them, so they accept it. But that's a slippery slope, and it's going to ultimately come to an end. Cryptocurrency is something they can't control. They can't inflate it in order to pay for drug wars or wars abroad or dropping bombs on, brown people in the Middle East. And cryptocurrency deprives them of the funding that they need in order to engage in this tyranny. So I think that cryptocurrency is probably the strongest tool we have on Earth. But I don't know of there's nothing that can be done with violence that's going to make the situation any better, at the very least. It's going to take peace to eliminate an evil, violent organization. Violence is just going to create more violence. It's not going to end it. It's only going to... It's similar to what I said to someone on Facebook recently about, being mean to bigots. Someone had posted, I'm always going to be mean to bigots. I said, why? That just increases the number of mean people in the world. That just increases the hostility. And I don't want to live in a world where people are mean. You're not putting an end to the mean bigot or to being mean in general by being mean to the bigot. You're just making the world a little bit more mean.
Right? That's pretty silly. I hate mean people. I'm going to be mean to them.
Yeah, it is silly. And that's the exact argument people make for these violent revolutions against the government. It's like, oh, I hate violent people, so we're going to engage in violence against them, and that's not going to solve the problem.
I used to really think like that. Like, I don't know that I would put it in these exact terms, but I used to always think like absolutely nobody can like hurt me or anything because I'm 10 times meaner. Like me and my friend, we used to kind of say that like, we're just so much meaner. Like they won't mess with us. They know not to mess with us because we're
And
mean.
you seem like the nicest little person in the world.
Well, no one is
You're like,
meaner or more violent than government for sure. And if you want to match the government, toe-to-toe in violence, first of all, you're probably not going to win. But even if you do, you're just going to become the thing that you set out to destroy. I think it was Nietzsche who said, stare too long into the abyss and the abyss stares back. And that's what happens with all of these violent revolutions. They just become a new gang of warlords ruling over people. Peace is the solution here. Peace and love. But what are your thoughts? Maybe I'm wrong. 603-283-6160.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160 if you want to join the discussion. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Angie,
and Bonnie.
And I find myself now reading every amplifier name carefully in my head before I say it on the air after last night's little fiasco. And I don't hear anything unusual with this one, but, you know, I typically don't hear them even when I say them aloud. So I do want to say thank you to Mal Esclavo, who is tonight's amplifier. Mal is a gold level amplifier, which means that Mal is giving $10 per month to the AMP program. AMP stands for Advertise, Market, and Promote. It's money that is used strictly to advertise, market, and promote Free Talk Live to get us on more radio stations to help us reach a larger audience with the ideas of liberty. So if you value that, you may consider joining the AMP program. You don't have to give $10 per month, though. All we ask is $5 per month. That gets you in. And it does come with a number of little perks, but the real reason you should join is that you value Free Talk Live and you want us to reach a larger audience. So Mal Esclavo, thank you so much for your contributions. Let's go to the phones. We've got TW calling from Boston. TW, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hi, how you doing?
Hey, what's on your mind tonight?
Yeah, I want to say that the whole thing with the Governor Whitmer thing being people are going to kidnap her, that was a FBI plot. They just roped in some dummies. One of the co-defendants they never released their name. That was the FBI agent. They just got a promotion for handing those guys on a plate. And it was at a time when Whitmer was really unpopular with the whole lockdown thing. So they just, that was a way out. Oh, I'm a victim of a crime. Just like Jesse Smollett, Whitmer did the same thing.
Man, it's been such a year. I forgot entirely about the Jesse Smollett.
I don't know about that one.
He was he a football player or an actor?
He was an actor from Empire.
I don't know why I thought he was a football player, but he basically paid some people to attack him and shout racial expletives at the time so that he could claim to have been a victim of a hate crime.
It was really lame because I loved that show. He was on Empire. I was like, why'd you have to do that?
I had totally forgot that even happened. But yes, it's been indisputably clear from this article that we've been talking about, TW, that the FBI played a very, very large role in the creation and development of this plot to arrest Governor Whitmer.
Of course they did. Just like a lot of these shooters that they said, like Nicholas Cruz, for instance, they said that they had been in contact with him. I believe they're in contact with the Sandy Hook shooter. It's always, they're in contact with someone troubled. And in this case, they just got into a chat room with some guys who were stupid and didn't know they were talking to an FBI agent and created, plans where they were going to. I bet those guys probably did say some things that you could get yourself in trouble for saying. But if the FBI agent is not there, does this thing become what it is? They never would have been able to do it. But the FBI get to swoop in, arrest these guys, seize all the hard drives, and say, look, we just did this. Meanwhile, they can't take time to look at Hunter Biden's laptop or, the FBI is compromised. They have been for a long time. And
well, there's certainly no good use for taxpayer money, but if the FBI was going to actually go out and look for, people who were disturbed, people who were mentally ill, people who were disaffected by the system and were deeply unhappy with it, if they were to then help those people in a positive way, I would have less an objection to it. But finding this guy who's down on his luck, who's scrolling through Facebook all day, he's upset about how the lockdowns have occurred. Now he can't find long-term employment. And he stumbles across an FBI agent, and then next thing you know, he's plotting with the FBI agent.
And he's traveling, and he has a purpose, and he has a mission.
Oh, good point.
So he's excited about life now.
And it's like TW said, that guy probably wouldn't have done anything like these plans if it wasn't planted into his head, because, he was just sitting around on
if
Facebook
the agent was going to provide the bomb material, how would they have even come up with that plan?
Instead, let's get the dude, a therapist. Let's get him a personal trainer to get him...
Maybe a girlfriend.
Well, it doesn't sound like he was ready for a girlfriend.
She could help him.
That's not a good way to start a relationship. TW, thank you so much for the call tonight. But yeah, you're absolutely right. A lot of these things would never have happened without FBI involvement. What they probably did, it sounds like, is they found this group of Boogaloo people, Boogaloo boys as they're known to be called, and they increasingly militarized them and worked them up into a frenzy and got them to come up with this plot to kidnap Governor Whitmer. And I don't know if any of them would have actually carried through with it or not. It sounds like they did get pretty far into the planning stages.
Right, if they were riding around armed in cars at night.
Yeah, they were looking for this woman's house. So, it wasn't the fantasy playing out that they thought that, was going to be their defense. So the article goes on that its members, that's members of the 3%ers, a primary concern for them is protecting gun rights, but the group also espouses the idea that citizens have the right to challenge their leaders.
Espouses the idea.
Yes, so does the Constitution. The Constitution also espouses the idea that citizens have the right to challenge their leaders, as does the Declaration of Independence.
But just because they say it doesn't mean we actually have the right. We're not supposed to.
No, and we know that we don't have the right because there's a resident of New Hampshire here who was charged with unlawful picketing for being in the Capitol building on January the 6th.
He was from Keene too, right? I've heard that there was somebody from Keene there.
I do not know.
I don't know. There was some kind of officer or something from Troy, right?
Yes, a police chief, I think.
Yeah, I think it was a chief.
So maybe that was the person. Its members, at times in full battle armor, make regular appearances at anti-government protests and other movements of civil strife, such as the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. Last month, the Justice Department charged 4 3%ers with conspiracy as part of the January the 6th insurrection. They just love that word, don't they? Insurrection. A primary goal of the Dublin meeting, Dieter and other attendees. Now, the organizer of the Dublin meeting was someone with an extensive criminal past and clearly not a very good person to be around, and also an FBI informant. Dieter and other attendees told BuzzFeed, was to discuss opening a charter school dedicated to teaching 3%er ideals. Coming so soon after the killing of George Floyd, the nation's racial divide was also a big topic of conversation, as were the recent protests and violence in cities across the country. Participants had traveled from as far as Kansas City and Maryland to attend this event organized by this FBI informant with an extensive criminal record.
Now, this person from Maryland, they were coming to Wisconsin?
I don't recall exactly.
Or Michigan. They were coming to Michigan.
Dublin, and it keeps referring to it as Dublin, but doesn't specify what state
So
it's in.
surely someone reached out to them and said, "Hey, we're doing this. Come here." Because was that one of the ones that were targeted?
Which one?
The one that was from Maryland.
I don't know. I mean, it doesn't sound like anyone was actually targeted at the Maryland event. Adam Fox, a weightlifter who had been inside the Capitol in Lansing at the same time as the Watchman, came down from Michigan along with Keller. The feds are everywhere, Kawasaki recalls, thinking to himself, another 3%er and a born-again Christian. But he wasn't surprised. Like many of the attendees, he had long believed that the 3%ers' political beliefs made them targets of the FBI. Yes, because the FBI's very existence is sort of counter to what the 3%ers believe. More coming up about this. It's Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Xi Jinping says there has been a significant loss of life following unprecedented floods in Henan province in central China. At least 25 people are dead and more than 100,000 displaced after what weather forecasters say is the highest level of rainfall in more than 1,000 years. FSN's Beijing bureau chief is Patrick Falk.
We are told that more than 60% of the city's annual rainfall all came down in a single day. The images that we've seen include pictures of roads completely submerged and cars getting washed away, as well as water bursting into subway stations, and of course these harrowing images of people trapped in trains almost neck deep in water.
The European Union is rebuffing British desires to renegotiate post-Brexit trade arrangements for Northern Ireland. The government in London says the current protocol is unsustainable. From FSN's Brussels bureau, Lucy Hoff reports.
The British government is now looking to substantially rewrite the arrangement with the EU, citing a febrile political climate in Northern Ireland, trade barriers across the Irish Sea, and disruption to businesses. The EU says it is willing to seek creative solutions within the framework of the protocol, but won't agree to a full renegotiation.
In fresh evidence of America's political polarization, Republicans in the House of Representatives now say they will conduct their own investigation into the January 6th insurrection by Donald Trump's conspiracy theory-believing supporters. Democrat Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, rejected the Republican Party's nominees to join a bipartisan probe. The Republicans' leader, Congressman Kevin McCarthy.
Pelosi has created a sham process. Unless Speaker Pelosi reverses course and seats all 5 Republicans, we will not participate.
But the Democrats say it would be ludicrous to include Republican members who tried to overturn the outcome of last November's election. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, has been defending his conduct in the dying weeks of the Trump administration. He made a rare appearance in the briefing room at the Pentagon.
The United States military is an apolitical institution. We were then, we are now. And our oath is to the Constitution, not to any individual at all. The military did not and will not and should not ever get involved in domestic politics. We don't arbitrate elections.
General Milley's actions are questioned in a series of new books about the Trump presidency. The mayor of Liverpool says it is incomprehensible that UNESCO is stripping the city's famed waterfront of its World Heritage status. UNESCO says recent developments, including plans for Everton's new football stadium, have resulted in a serious deterioration of the site. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. And for those who think that these, I don't want to call these groups libertarian, but these militia groups, the Boogaloo Boys, let's call them that, are a bunch of racists. I mean, really, they've said in their own words, what we want is for each and every one of our countrymen and women to realize that the militia and the patriots that you were told were a bunch of racists. That is not true. It was a tool to divide you against us. We are not racist. We are not hateful people. We want to stand with all of you, with each and every one of you. And that's certainly the vibe I've always gotten from the people I know who, I don't think they call themselves Boogaloo Boys, but they have all the trappings of what one would consider to be a Boogaloo Boy. I partied with some of these people at Fork Fest last year, and they had no issue with me whatsoever. So, yeah, my experience with them is not hatefulness or bigotry or any of these other things. But let's go to the phones. We've got Dave calling from New York. Dave, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Hey, what's on your mind tonight?
I heard you guys talking about sex within the first hour of the show. I really don't believe in relationships because they don't work. I'm on Tinder, and I'm looking for, just someone to come over and
Yeah, I'm putting it into that right now because I don't know what you were about to say, but it was not going to be FCC friendly, and I don't want to have to waste time hitting the dump button.
See, Dave from Poughkeepsie is why I don't really want to participate in Shirtless She Talk Live. Somebody like him.
From like him?
Yeah.
They're just boobs. Oh yeah, we could talk about it now.
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I
Good
didn't know it was
job,
a secret.
Bonnie.
No, it wasn't a secret. Angie had actually just asked me if we were going to talk about it. Okay, so for those who don't know the entire backstory here, Topless Tuesdays were a thing on Free Talk Live for a very long time, and people are always asking, why doesn't Conan ever wear a shirt? Well, it's because Topless Tuesdays were probably in large part created by Conan not wearing a shirt during the warmer months in New Hampshire. I don't know.
So did everyone go topless on Tuesdays?
Everyone did eventually go topless
just men?
on Tuesdays. Until yesterday. Now, I've been topless on streams before. I have no objection. I mean, people can go online and see me naked probably pretty easily if they want. I don't care.
Noted.
It doesn't matter to me one bit. Like with the Republican meeting, the last Zoom meeting that we were at where they elected officials, I did it topless. I actually went and bought barbells for my nipple piercing specifically for this meeting.
I love it.
I bought the biggest barbells I could find. They were like this long, and they were inescapably there. And on top of that, I also wore a leash around my neck that was like trailed off to the camera like someone was holding it. And I sat through the whole meeting like this, right?
Very seriously, I'm
it's
sure.
on YouTube.
I don't know how seriously it was. Yes, at youtube.ariadamezzo.com. It's somewhere on there. It's not like pinned or anything. But so yes, there was also Aria Uncensored, which was a show I did briefly. I think there were 4 episodes of it. Wasn't having a really good time and then working too many hours, stressed. And the last episode called it quits on that. But it was a show that was done topless, and it got us a 3-day suspension from Twitch. Despite the fact that, Topless Tuesdays had been happening here on Free Talk Live with Ian and Conan and maybe someone else here and there. And it had never been a problem. We looked into Twitch's terms then, and they don't allow any toplessness.
Okay.
But they never went after Topless Tuesdays.
So we're going to do Topless She Talk Live next Wednesday.
Yes. So yesterday I decided, Topless Tuesdays are coming back. I don't care if we get suspended from these platforms or banned from them. Ian doesn't care. So let's do it. And I don't care about...
So you guys were topless yesterday?
Yes. And I don't care about being topless on the stream. This is not a good seat to be in for me because the way the camera is positioned, I would have had to angle it down, and I didn't do that. I didn't adjust it at all. But I don't think my nipples ever actually got in frame.
But you did look naked. I saw it because
if the camera is like this, my nipples are going to be in frame.
Well, I assume this will be done at
your place,
at the Amdusia studio, and that's because our cameras are 1080.
Oh,
these are 720. So you'll get
Okay.
So you'll get
Much better
topless
picture.
in better detail. And I decided, okay, we know they will ban a trans woman, or maybe they won't because that my breasts are non-existent,
Right.
Or basically non-existent. So I was surprised when Twitch handed out that suspension when they did. But let's see how far we can push this thing, because it is fun, it's stupid, and it's trolling, but it has also got a point to it.
Yep.
Right. A woman or a trans woman, cis or trans, should be able to go topless in a video.
Absolutely.
If a man can do it. And so that's what
And they
the
should
envelope
normalize.
we're going to push at.
You should really normalize like nudism, and
Absolutely.
yeah, because people are so uncomfortable around it. If you see somebody and you're like, "Oh God, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry," and because you're taught that it's not okay to not have clothes on.
It's really an American thing too. I had a German friend, and like I would always like just we'd be getting undressed in the gym locker room, and I would just like naturally not look at her, and she'd always laugh at me and be like, "Oh my God, Bonnie, you're so American. Just like look at me. We're just both women."
Well, it's Pavlovian, the way that we treat nudity and sex in our minds. A person isn't getting naked unless they're doing one or two things. They're either about to engage in sexual activity or about to shower. Those are the only two times the average person is ever naked. And the only time they ever see another naked person in person is when they're about to engage in sexual activity. So to them, those two things become linked in their mind. And this happens at very early ages where, a naked person means sex. And it's just like Pavlov's dog, where every time he rang the bell, he fed the dog.
Yeah.
And eventually just ringing the bell would be enough to make the dog salivate. And just like that, just seeing nudity becomes enough to arouse the average human being.
Yep.
Normalizing nudity is by far the best way to solve that problem.
Oh, I agree.
But it's also very hot in New Hampshire. That's why I'm wearing the top that I'm wearing. I would prefer to just be topless. I spent most of my life just going around topless. And now suddenly I can't do that. I'm not allowed to do that. It's illegal in some places. It will get us banned from Twitch, banned from YouTube.
The gym that I'm a member of, when Michael used to work out topless, and she said, just so you know, when he comes back, there have been some people who have been complaining, not because of him, but have been complaining about being uncomfortable with the men not having their shirts on. So the men that they were complaining about were ripped.
That's so
and
stupid.
they were uncomfortable because they felt inferior.
See, that's not the way to solve this. The way to solve this problem is not to make Ian and Conan put shirts on.
No.
It's to say, okay, you're right. What is wrong about you sitting there not wearing a top while talking about whatever topic happens to come up? We're not even focusing on the fact that we're topless.
No.
We kind of did last night, and we obviously kind of will be next week. But I mean, it's not like we sat around talking about how great it was to be topless and why people should go check out the video
It's going to be great not to
feeds.
wear a bra. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time. And you can watch it at video.freetalklive.com. That'll be the best place to watch it, because the other ones are probably going to shut it down pretty quickly. But hey, maybe they won't. I mean, I don't know. I'm interested to see what's going to happen. How many video affiliates are we going to lose for next week's
That's going to be good.
episode of She Talk Live? And how much hate mail is there going to be? The comments, it's going to be a very successful
Do you think there'll be
string.
any fines? Do you think that we'll get in trouble?
I don't think, no, we're not doing
not
anything
illegal, right?
illegal. We're just
That's
violating
okay.
their terms.
Yeah, we're inside a house, so it couldn't be illegal, right? I don't know. I went topless at a lake before where it isn't illegal in Austin, and it was pretty fun.
So Bonnie's in.
Freeing.
I think it's legal
But then-
to be topless in New Hampshire in public.
I believe that's correct.
I know it is in Brattleboro. I think it is in Brattleboro
Because they
as
did
well.
the thing at Northampton Beach, like the topless protest or whatever.
TJ was saying that in Keene specifically, there's one kind of vague law that they could get you off of, and it says like anything. Oh, I wish he was here to say the exact words.
Oh, that's right. You can be topless, but you can't do anything that is
Gross.
suggestive.
Yeah, or that's what the word gross is in there.
The word gross is in there.
Yeah.
Like sneeze or cough or.
I think
that's
they
like-
meant gross in a different way. I think suggestive
I'm
is
just
probably
saying, no
how they
one
meant
coughing
gross.
naked looks good, okay?
So that's what's coming up next week. And however you're watching this, you might want to check out Odyssey. You can find it at video.freetalklive.com, because Twitch and YouTube and Facebook aren't going to let this happen long. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
On March 16th this year, government task forces violently raided the New Hampshire Bitcoin Embassy, the Mighty Moose Mart, the homes of Aria DiMezzo, Andy and Renee Spinella, Colleen Fordham, a grandmother, and perhaps most relevant, the studios of Free Talk Live. The Crypto Six were arrested. 4 were released on bail conditions, but Ian Freeman was held hostage for 69 days. Rich Paul, also known as Nobody, remains captive. We've consulted attorneys who say no crime even appears to have been committed. But that didn't stop the Joint Thug Task Force from ripping out wires from our broadcast stacks, taking Free Talk Live off the air, resulting in a violation of our and your First Amendment rights. You can visit thecrypto6.com to help, but as importantly, contact other media and tell them about this outrage. This case is likely to set precedent for cryptocurrency use well into your future. Help our fight for liberty and financial freedom at thecrypto6.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and we're talking about the way that the FBI has just absolutely infiltrated these various anti-government organizations and then proceeds to suggest they get involved, they escalate things. Like, hey, you're just posting on Facebook. I have a friend who can hook you up with all the bombs you need.
Let's go meet him.
And then that person is an undercover FBI agent. And they've been doing this for a very long time. And there's been a lot of names, a lot of places in this story. So I don't expect you to remember any of them because I know that I don't. And I don't even remember the time frame that we're talking about here when they say late the following Sunday. Following what? Dan was ushered into the FBI's, I don't remember a Dan either, was ushered into, it's a long, or we're only halfway through this thing. I mean, there's no way we're finishing it, but it gives a really horrifying glimpse into just how far off the rails the FBI's gotten. They're not investigating criminals anymore. They're creating criminals. He was ushered into the FBI's agent in Flint, a one-story building with an unmarked door flanked by a pair of potted flowers. So the FBI's office in downtown Flint is a one-story building that's just completely unmarked, and it's just got a pair of potted flowers out front. He was there to make a phone call in the presence of his FBI handlers. It had been a week. So this is a secret police station in the middle of this town made to look completely innocuous. That's terrifying. There are all sorts of buildings throughout the United States that could be FBI offices if this is what they're doing. They're behaving like a secret police force.
Absolutely.
It had been a week since the meeting in Dublin, and matters were quickly advancing. That was a meeting that was organized by an FBI informant with an extensive criminal past, which is why he started being an FBI informant in the first place. Like I said, there's a reason I can't keep up with the names and the places involved here because it's extensive and it's just, the FBI was all over this from the very beginning. An FBI informant was the one who set up this national meeting of various people interested in militias. I don't know how much more involved they could be in it. That Sunday, the Watchmen called Fox, the person Fox, during a field training at Morrison's house. I don't remember Morrison either, but the connection was bad and nobody could hear much over all the gunshots. Dan, who had recently been elevated to second in command, or XO, offered to call Fox later. After training ended, he raced to the FBI office and placed the call on a recorded line. As agents listened in, Dan pressed him about the meeting in Ohio. Dublin, Fox said, so Dublin, Ohio was the place where this meeting was had. Dublin, Fox said, was about changing the paradigm. The media treated patriots unfairly. After he and other patriots occupied the State House in Lansing, they called us domestic terrorists. We want to take that stigma off and let them know who we are because we're not racists. We're not white nationalists. We just want our Constitution upheld. And I've got to tell you, I am skipping the F word a lot here, and it's becoming difficult to do. So I'm going to move on instead of having to dump myself in a minute. Laughing, Fox said his dream was to have the governor hogtied down on a table for public display the way DEA agents spread seized guns and drugs across a table like hunting trophies after a big bust. And it's not just DEA agents. It's just
every police force.
Yeah, and I've seen some of these that are so bad. One I saw last night was three white police officers who look exactly like every other white police officer. I don't know why I began attempting to try to describe them. Standing in front of a table that had maybe 8 ounces of weed on it, and a gun, and a single clip, and a little bit of cash. And these police officers, each one of which was open carrying a weapon, a gun, said, violence. Drugs lead to violent crime, and the streets are now a little safer now that we've taken a dangerous weapon off of them.
There was a police department who busted some people for pot, and so many negative comments and stuff like that.
Was this the one where someone said something like, hey, give Wyatt Earp his weed back?
Yeah, something like that.
That was the best comment I've ever seen. I will never forget that.
Who's Wyatt Earp?
Wyatt Earp was this guy from the Wild West. So they took a really, really old and took probably incapable of firing gun from this dude and just a tiny amount of weed. I don't remember what the amount of weed was, but it wouldn't have gotten you charged with anything. It would have gotten you fined in New Hampshire for having it.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And I think the cash they seized was only like once, if I remember correctly.
It wasn't a lot.
It was like 4 $1 bills laid out, and they're like, we busted this guy.
Wow.
It's sad. And they're proud of this. They're proud of ruining people's lives.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Over guns that probably don't work.
And drugs that make you sleepy.
Yeah, hungry, happy, sleepy was the way Cat Williams characterized it in one of his stand-up acts. Those, as far as we can tell, are the effects of marijuana. They make you hungry, they make you happy, and they make you sleepy. I don't know what they is. It makes you happy, hungry, and sleepy. So, I mean, cops are bizarre, and I don't understand how they do what they do with any. How do you become a police officer trying to make the world a better place, and then admit on Facebook to the whole world that you think guns are dangerous while you're open carrying 3 guns? That's not constitutional. It's not rule of law. It's just abject tyranny. Guns are dangerous unless we, the government enforcers, are allowed to have guns.
Well, they have to have their guns in order to enforce their laws, because if they weren't armed, there's no way that we would obey what they ask or what they tell us to do, because they really don't ask you.
Well, no, they don't. And it works in the United Kingdom, but in the United Kingdom, the average citizen isn't likely carrying a concealed gun.
Exactly.
There are a lot of guns in the United States. Isn't it like 3 for every citizen?
I have no idea.
I don't remember the number now, but
I'd be curious to find out.
It's a lot. So they were planning to take the building, take the hostages. They said, I can't do anything with less than 200 men, but at best they could muster 15 to 20 people. And they just go on. They're planning to kidnap to arrest the governor of Michigan. And the whole point of the story tonight was just how involved the FBI really was. These are not people who are looking for criminals, as we said.
They're people who are creating situations that would have never happened if this organization, the FBI, didn't exist.
I remember watching a documentary several years ago about the time that I don't remember the details now, so I'm just going to move on. But I mean, the FBI, they would have, if they needed to, provided the explosives to blow up this bridge for this group of people who planned to do that. And they probably would have been real explosives.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what they do. They don't care about the loss of life that they cause. Why should they?
No, the bigger the crime and the more destruction it causes, the bigger the penalty or the sentence. Thank you.
Some of them are violent criminals, like the ones that we covered in this story today, like the guy who beat his wife and the other guy who...
And he was a cop.
Yep. Some of the cops themselves are violent criminals, so they don't care if they blow up a bridge and somebody drives off of it in the middle of the night.
Yeah, that was Trask, the agent who got into an argument with his wife and proceeded to bash her face on the nightstand and choke her.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely a violent dude. Doesn't seem to care that much. I mean, that's how he treats his wife, the person he's supposed to love. And I can't imagine what that means, how he treats the average person.
And he gets personal recognizance bail while nobody who has never done anything violent in 52 years is still locked up because they mentioned January 6th during his trial.
It is bizarre that it's not bizarre, it's unfortunate. That's how corrupt the system really is. Oh, but the FBI agent has a badge. Yes, but he bashed his wife's head against the nightstand
while
arguing
with her. He was trying to kill her.
Yes, intent to cause. And the article here just said, he got arrested for intent to cause serious bodily harm. Can you give me a little bit more details?
Because he was trying to murder his wife. Yes. All because of a disagreement about a swingers party.
That they both attended.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like she went off and went to a swingers party.
If you take your wife to a swingers party, don't get upset when she finds somebody else.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Exactly.
Loser.
But he got upset. I mean, he's a violent thug. I mean, that's what they do. So he got upset and he attacked the person he loves. So it's not surprising to think that, if they could have, they would have provided real bombs.
Mm-hmm.
And the Iraq vet who was the informant from the very beginning, not to mention the guy who organized this on a national level, trying to get all of these militia groups together.
He was an informant. He was an FBI person.
He's obviously violent. He's an Iraq vet.
So they should be in trouble for the whole idea. It shouldn't be the people who actually were just following rules.
No, and it's starting to feel a lot like Soviet Russia, man, as I look around and I see all of these examples of people who were FBI informants, and the FBI has these secret offices and they're unmarked, basically. I don't know what to do about it.
Join us next week, though, for the Topless She Talk Live. Don't forget.
That is coming up next week. Video.freetalklive.com will probably be the only place you can watch it.
In 1080.
Video.freetalklive.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world?